you will click on *9 to raise your hand. And then when I call on you, you will hit *6 to unmute yourself. So just a reminder, you get 3 minutes to speak. I'm going to call on someone, and then please state your name and where you are joining us from. And we are going to start with Sue. Sue, where are you joining us? Name and where are you joining us from? Sue, Aiden.
There we go. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. All right. Name and where you're joining us from, and then I'll start your 3 minutes.
Okay. Sue Haddon, I'm joining you from Ann Arbor. So thank you for the opportunity to address the commissioners this evening. I really appreciate all the work you guys do. Can't even imagine how you juggle everything that you juggle. And I really appreciate your efforts to connect with the eastern side of the county most recently. I know that the board is working hard on deciding how to spend the rest of the COVID relief dollars. And I believe that the board should invest the rest of the ARPA money on the eastern side of the county. Why? Because many of us want Washtenaw County to be a community of people who look after one another, especially the most vulnerable. I know that reaching out to this part of the county isn't always easy, but I feel like you have an amazing opportunity to reinvent how we engage with our neighbors who have suffered and continue to suffer. Many residents in these communities understandably do not trust elected officials due to a long history of being marginalized and ignored. And many, I have heard, believe that elected officials only engage with them when it is time to vote. So I'm really glad that you guys are taking this amazing opportunity to engage. The way I see it is, can you imagine at the next election that you walk into these neighborhoods and ask citizens to reelect you, and they say, "Oh, I know you. You helped me." So as a white resident of Ann Arbor, I would work hard to reelect my commissioner who votes to support this part of the county and spend the ARPA money in the Black community. I would like to see each of the commissioners treat the entire county as one community. With this broader perspective, I trust that you will reach the conclusion that our most vulnerable neighbors should and must come first. So I ask you to invest the rest of the money in the Black communities. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. All right, next we are going to hear from Eric. Oh, and just I left this out of the housekeeping earlier. So in case it's your first time joining a meeting like this, we can't engage back with you during public comment. We hear from everybody for public comment, and then commissioners have an opportunity to respond to all of the public comment at once if they would like to. All right, Eric, you are up.
Awesome. Eric Mohammed. I live in College Heights in Ypsilanti. So I appreciate the commissioners working with the governor's office over the summer after the flooding that occurred. I know that we got a couple $100,000 from that $10 million that the governor made available. I believe that was in August. So, right, like I moved in a year ago. My property taxes on a $240,000 home are like 10 grand a year. And I can't really understand why it's taken since August for those funds, which got dispersed to the county, to for there to be a process for residents who, I had a contractor come to my house yesterday. We're talking like 80 grand, right? To redo my basement. Okay. And that's on top of the probably $15,000 or $20,000 that was spent on pumping 3 feet of water out of the basement. Right. And so I understand that you guys didn't build the homes or design the sewer system, right? I'm not saying you guys are accountable for this entire mess, but there's money, and I would love to understand more about when that money will be available to actual residents and what that process will be, because like this is like the stuff that makes people move, right? Like $10,000 a year on property taxes. Like I'm not understanding what I'm getting for that money. And when I look across the whole state of Michigan, like my property taxes feel out of control. And, you know, if that's to invest in a community, that's something I'm totally okay with, right? It's not about the dollars per se, but I'm not getting a return on that investment, right? And so, like, I don't understand what the holdup is. And I apologize sort of for my like kind of pugilistic tone here, but like if you guys had a brand new, your first home get smoked 7 months after you bought it, and there was money available and it wasn't making its way to residents, there wasn't even communication about a process for that money to be available, I assume that you would be frustrated also. And you would be looking at any and every option you had available to you to figure that out and try to ensure that it doesn't happen again. That's all.
All right, next up we've got Lisa. Lisa, first and last name, where you're joining us from.
Hi, my name is Lisa Carey Harrow. I'm joining you from Pittsfield Township. I just wanted to make some comments on the allocation of the funds. I would just like to support Tricia Duckworth and the Survivor Speak plan. I would like $6 million of the money to go to the grassroots groups. And my particular interest is in the groups that have a literacy component. And I would just like to comment that in the county, in particular Ypsilanti, where the high scope study was originally done at the Perry School, this study has been monumental and it's been used around the world. The main points of this study were investing in literacy is absolutely necessary and it's fiscally responsible as well. It has a return at the time of this study, which is decades ago, of $15 per dollar invested in avoidance of services later on. One of the reviewers of the high scope study was a Nobel Prize winning economist from University of Chicago, James Heckman. He said that this report substantially bolsters the case for early literacy interventions in disadvantaged populations, which is what we have over on the eastern part of the county. The literacy rates in some of those schools in the eastern part of the county are 10 to 15%. That means that 1 or 2 kids out of every 10 are reading on a 3rd grade level when they do the testing. Now, I understand these tests are biased, there's cultural implications, but in general, they are a good indicator of basic literacy skills. Predominantly white schools on the western side of the county have literacy rates of 70 to 75% and higher. These kids are just growing up with the hugest disadvantage that they can never overcome without additional resources. Educate Youth Organizer told me that the kids at her middle school that she's servicing, they're currently reading Magic Tree House books and they're struggling. Magic Tree House books are read in kindergarten and 1st grade in predominantly white schools on the west side of the county. I ran into Daryl Johnson at the grocery store. He's doing Mentor to Youth with 80 kids. He tells me that these kids, he had no idea how far behind these kids are with a tear in his eye. These kids cannot spell basic words. My husband, he teaches at WCC in the developmental English department. I know some of you have been on those meetings, but maybe you haven't paid attention to the fact that there's been 25 additional developmental sections opened up, and there will be more and more coming in math and English. And these are kids who are 16, 17, who do not have basic skills to even enter the English 111 classes. The kids are so far behind, and any infusion of resources to these grassroots groups will directly affect these kids. It will uplift them. It will help to eradicate illiteracy in this county, which is something that has been neglected for a long time.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, your time is up.
There hasn't been any dollars allocated directly towards literacy groups for a long time. And I think this is a great opportunity to
Thank you, Lisa.
recognize.
Do we have anybody else for public comment? Michelle, first and last name and where you're joining us from.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Michelle Pearson. I am in Wayne County. However, my family are residents of Washtenaw County, and I too agree with Lisa that I am here not only to support Trisha Duckworth and her literacy program. Her program will be very beneficial to youth in Washtenaw County. I know firsthand because I lost a 17-year-old cousin who, after leaving the justice system and trying to get into school to obtain an education, was killed because he wasn't allowed to get in school. So I feel that money should be allocated to her program so that she can get people into their literacy programs, be able to invest in intervention to keep these youth out of the streets. And I really hope that you all will allocate money to her program because I feel it is in dire need in Washtenaw County.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Trisha. Trisha, first and last name and where you're joining us from.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Trisha Duckworth. I'm in Van Buren Township. First of all, I want to say thank you to the commissioners and to Peter for putting together the listening session that happened in West Willow. There was definitely more of a turnout than I'm sure anybody expected. So we are grateful for those moments. Just want to offer, if I could, and this is not directly coming from me, even though I'm saying it and I agree with it. There is some feedback about the texting that was going on back and forth while the listening session was going on. And unfortunately, we all know that if you're texting and things of that nature, we're really not actively listening. And that kind of put some people off a little bit, including myself who was watching it. And I understand, I think it's just, you all wanted to have answers for people, but in those moments, and hopefully maybe for the next one, there could be some kind of moderator to help guide the conversation and a note taker possibly. So that way you all can just, be more engaged in listening, to the constituents. And then lastly, there was a curveball that was thrown where someone got up and kind of, said, hey, we shouldn't be talking about this. We should be talking about that. Well, what happens is that, unfortunately for a community that is not often listened to, when they do come into these spaces, they just want to talk about what they want to talk about, right? And so, to have someone get up and say, hey, let's not talk about this, let's talk about that, it kind of was a little put off and a little rude a little bit, because again, the constituents wanted to talk about what was on their heart to talk about, and with it not being a moderator in place to kind of guide the conversation, and people not really understanding, what you all wanted to focus on, that may be where the miscommunication happened. But again, we're hopeful that we can get more individuals to these other listening sessions. And again, happy that you all did come out. We have to continue to build. Lastly, yes. First of all, this is not a Trisha Duckworth show. Let me say that I get very uncomfortable when people say, oh, Trisha Duckworth, all through the meeting, because this is not about me. It's about the community first and foremost. And second, these groups do need allocation. They need help to be able to curb what is going on in the community. There was another murder the other night, and it just continues to happen over and over again. And we are not here blaming you all for the murder. So let's not mistake that. We're just stating that, and I hear my time is up. I'm just saying that we need to do something to pour back into the community so that our children and our families can have that investment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anybody else for public comment? Not seeing any hands. Okay. Going once. Twice. All right, 3 times. Closing public comment. We're going to move on to commissioner follow-up to citizen participation. Any commissioners, please raise your hand if you'd like to respond. Oh, Commissioner Morgan.
Maybe less of a response, but more of a question for Greg or admin in regard to Eric M's concern. Could you maybe address that concern?
Sure, I will have a response for the commissioners. I wrote it down. I've already talked to staff about putting something out to you all tomorrow, and just to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of the framework for accessing those dollars. So I will have something to you all by the close of business tomorrow.
Great, thanks, Greg. Yeah, in response to Eric there, I think we worked very hard and the governor worked very hard to get funds for the community. So we absolutely want to make sure that those funds are getting to those who are impacted by the flooding. So I think that is really important. The other thing I just want to mention is I really liked hearing Lisa's comment regarding literacy as a specific issue that needs to be addressed. I think from my time working at WCC, I would absolutely agree with you. I think that is such an important issue. And I think it is really important that we identify here are the things that we want to work on as we hopefully do end up funding or providing funding for community organizations. It'll be important to make sure we're saying, here's what we want to try and address with these funds. So I think that's great feedback and very helpful. And certainly thank you for that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. Chair Schenk.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank everybody who came and spoke today. Appreciate your input, appreciate your comments. All of them were really helpful. And I do want to reiterate that literacy it's incredibly important. And I take the need in this community very seriously. And although we do fund a variety of literacy supports, it's clear that there's a greater need. And so that's something that I've been trying to focus on a lot. And I do believe that next meeting, we will have a proposal to consider regarding those American Rescue Plan funds. And it's the first meeting in December. And so I'm really excited about that. I know that the commissioners and staff have all been working very hard on that. So thanks.
Thank you. Did I see a hand, Commissioner Jefferson? Yeah, I did see that. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, let me say thank you to all those who spoke from the community about issues that are, continually being addressed and discussed. As I said before, really from the community standpoint, that voice is the strongest I've ever heard it over the years. And as they continue to address us, the things that we're hearing are what I would say historical problems, and we have an opportunity to turn them around. The literacy problem is so, if I said some things about what I know about that, there would be some heads rolling, and because there are some things that have not been done and could be done to help with these literacy problems with our students. Not only did COVID put our students behind because of lack of speed for good internet service, but also they were behind before it got there. So it's not that we're looking for money to just throw money at it. We need more money to go at the people that want to help, that can help. We need more bodies that can help. We're doing a lot. The school is doing a lot with literacy, but it's not so much what they're doing, is who's doing it. And those who have no connection with our children to get them out of their homes, to get their mothers to trust them, are not really being given a lot of help. And it's no fault of their own. I mean, we have opportunities here with some of the groups that have been listed and some of our emails that do have these connections with people in the community. as far as the flood relief dollars from the state, we've had those since August 30th. I asked that they be distributed back then, and I haven't seen anything yet. And so I'm really upset about that, because the process doesn't take 2.5 months to build. What it takes is a few staff getting together and go ahead and build them. And the year is ending out. And as Mr. Muhammad said, he has over $80,000 worth of damage. The 212,000 is not going to touch enough. But we had Mr. Muhammad, we had Ms. Jones stand with the governor as she signed it over here at the Senior Citizen Building to give the $10 million for the relief. And so, yeah, I would be frustrated too if I was him. And Ms. Jones, I spoke to her today. They're still dealing with their basement also. And so that is something that needs to be, it's just as the rain was a flash flood type of thing, this needs to be a flash urgent, immediate distribution of funds that we've been holding since the state already did their part. I talked with someone from the state about it too. They didn't know, and they weren't aware that those dollars had not been distributed yet.
I don't understand.
So I think the problems that we face in Eastern County have an opportunity here to be met by the right organizations and the right people. If you throw money at different things without knowing who's the, you can read data, you can read past outcomes, but are those data outcomes really what they are, or are they just numbers that have been made so to look so? So those stories that we've been hearing about the shootings, about the literacy, about the lack of help with this flood and other things that's going on in the Eastern County deserve and ought to be put at the front of these ARP dollars, and not so much so that we can have an idea of what the things are within our own conversations, but from what we've heard, especially at our listening session on Saturday, what we heard there, and from this point on, those listening sessions need to be reconstructed to the point to where we won't have grandstanding, we won't have political grandstanding, and we won't have people trying to stir conversations away from what people in the community have been trying to do, which was something that we'll get with Mr. Deal and Mr. Lindeman to combat that, because that is something that when people were texting and this and that type of thing, it comes across, and it might not be the case, because some people can multitask, but not listening. That's what it comes across as. And so therefore it's best to just, listen and then go back and take our notes and go through what, because, we talk about all the guidelines that the Treasury has. And, I saw an email that came out Friday about $1 million going to be given to the sole source providers instead of a RFP process to get the new human services partnerships going, what used to be COFU. It's like, I thought there had to be an RFP process to do that. I'm not sure. So I'm asking, how is that so? If there's not going to be an RFP process and these dollars are going to be allocated to certain groups that definitely need this money, so that the services, the critical services they provide won't be stopped for us, for our residents. But if we're going to say something about these dollars, we need to be consistent. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Do we have any other commissioners? It was a close one there. When I went to unmute myself, I almost hit shut down. That would have been bad. It's okay. We got away from it though. Okay. Any thoughts before? Oh, Commissioner Scott, go ahead.
It's just a question. Commissioner Schenk said that we're looking at seeing the plan for ARPA money in that first weekend in November. I assume that that's been bounced around in leadership a lot. Hopefully that plan in its entirety will get out to the rest of us to have ample time to review that before December's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like there was another hand that was about to come up. Somebody's connecting to audio. Nope. Okay. Any other commissioners? Last commissioner comments before we move forward. Seeing none. Okay. I'm gonna go forward. I'm gonna thank everybody for coming to the meeting today and giving public comment. I know that can be challenging. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate everyone that showed up to the listening session over the weekend, and for the staff that worked really hard to put it together and having to be really flexible on the change. One, the change of venue, because we had to change the venue because we knew so many more people were going to come. And then we got to the venue, which thank you, Commissioner Jefferson, for working to get the venue changed. And then there was more people than that venue was supposed to have. So hopefully our future listening sessions continue to be that well attended. And now that we know that people want to talk to us, I think we'll be able to plan the logistics a bit better. So it's much more user friendly, or easier for people to be able to be there to listen. So we learned a lot during that first one, and I think the next one will be even better. Great. We're going to move on now to new business. Look for somebody to move the agenda. Commissioner Labar. You muted yourself. Now you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, you were. Now you're unmuted. There you go.
Okay. Go to somebody.
You get somebody else. Commissioner Scott, move the agenda, please. Thank you.
All right, I have 4A trial court, fiscal year 22 Michigan State Police Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Grant. 4B District Court 1, fiscal year 22 Michigan State Police Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Grant. 4C1 Prosecuting Attorney, City of Ypsilanti Marijuana Expungement Grant. 4D Public Works 1, Washtenaw Regional Resource Management Authority and Washtenaw County Contract Amendment. 4E Water Resources 1, Survey and Remonumentation Program 2022. 4E Water Resources 2, Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program Clean Sweep Grant Program. 4F Equalization 1, the 2021 Apportionment Report. 4G Finance 1, Capital Improvement Refunding Bonds, Series 2022, refunding of Series 2014 and 2015, and Certificate of Continuing Disclosure. 4H1, the 2021 non-general fund budget adjustments. And I think that's it. I think the supplementals were not on this part of the agenda.
That was great.
Thank you.
Very impressive. That was a lot of letters in the alphabet. Got all the way to H. Okay. Is there a support for that movement? That
Support.
motion? Oh, all right. Commissioner Schenk got it at that time. Great. All right. Well, let's do it. Anybody from the trial court want to tell us about this grant? Maybe I'm pretty sure. Nope. No way. Nope. Lisa, you're here with the district court. Okay, so nobody from the trial court. That's all right. I think everybody did their homework on it. So Robert.
Commissioner Beeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge.
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes.
Commissioner Labar. Yes. Okay. Commissioner Maciejewski.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk.
Yes.
Item passed.
Excellent. Thanks. I love approving grants. All right. Lisa, showtime. So you're already ready.
Yeah, it's same grant as trial court, same funding, same reason. We're both looking to replace some very old recording systems that we needed to replace anyway. So grant money to do that is an extra bonus. If you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them, but it's pretty straightforward.
All right, do we have any questions, anybody? Oh, Commissioner Shink does not. That was clear. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions. Great. Well, Lisa, thank you for being here. You get to be here when we, I assume, get ready to vote yes on this. Let's do it, Robert.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar, Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Shink,
Yes.
Commissioner Beaman.
Yes.
Item passed.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for being here, Lisa.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your support.
Absolutely. All right, next item is for the prosecuting attorney. I believe Prosecutor Savitt is in the attendees. Could we move Prosecutor Savitt into panelist? You are here. You are.
I'm here. All right. All right. Thank you. So this grant is comes to us from the city of Ypsilanti. The city has, pursuant to its opting into recreational marijuana tax dollars that they have allocated to use to turn the page on the war on drugs and specifically old marijuana convictions. So this $25,000 grant would come to the prosecutor's office, to our new and permanent, thank you again, commissioners, conviction integrity and expungement unit, to facilitate the expungement of marijuana related convictions that are on the records of Ypsilanti residents, arise out of the district court in Ypsilanti, or that otherwise have an Ypsilanti city nexus. Happy to take any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Shink.
Thank you, Chair. Prosecutor Savitt, can you tell us when the marijuana conviction expungements get going?
Well, they've already been going, and we've already been helping people with expungements. What this grant will allow us to do is, first of all, continue to offer those services for free. We've got currently Michigan Works money that we're drawing down that we've been using to pay for it. The other thing that we'd like to explore actually is to partner with a data firm to pull the records, pull any marijuana records that do have that Ypsilanti city nexus, and actually affirmatively invite folks to apply for expungement. This is something that actually has been done out in California to notify people that their records were being automatically expunged. But here, of course, you've got to go through the application process. So this will actually, if we're able to get that going, allow us to create a nice pilot program in the city of Ypsilanti, get everybody notice of that, and then hopefully it can be something that can be replicated elsewhere.
Thank you very much.
Right. Any other questions? Scan the room, not seeing anybody. Oh, Commissioner Barr, you're unmuted. You're still working through your thing. Okay.
I think I got it fixed. Sorry.
I think you do got it. All right. We can hear you. Excellent. All right. Well, Robert, I think it's time to call that roll.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Shink,
Yes.
Commissioner Beaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge.
Yes.
Item passed.
Thank you, commissioners.
Hey, thank you. And thanks for being here. See you next time. All right. Public Works. For Public Works.
Theo was having a little bit of trouble. I'm not sure if he's on because I can't see the whole group, but Evan's here because I got, I think, 5 things or something.
I'm here.
Okay, great. I'll defer to
I
Theo.
can take this one.
All right. Commissioner Maciejewski's, did I skip? Well, you raised your hand. No, you're good. Okay.
No.
Oh, okay.
All right. I got a question.
Oh, he's ready to go with a question already. Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything before you took questions, but we got a question already for you.
Yeah, I'm ready to rock with Theo here.
All right.
Theo, in the 2021 grant that Warma got, I noticed that there was a $22 increase per ton in the value of the recycled materials based upon the work that was done under this grant because contamination was reduced in the recycling stream. So I guess two questions. One, do you expect to make improvements upon that with this particular funding opportunity? And two, is what's been learned through that process transferable to other recyclers like Western Washtenaw Recycling Authority?
So yes, to your second question of is that transferable, in part because I wrote the grant for WWRA for the same opportunity, and they'll be implementing that grant starting in 2022. So they are able to do it because they also got the grant. Some of the lessons also apply, but it's a lot of hands-on work, and the grant support makes that possible because it provides technical support as well as monetary funds, which are necessary to make that happen. And then your question about the $22, remind me what your first part of your question was.
Yeah, so with the 2022 opportunity, do you expect to be able to build upon increasing the value of the value of the recyclables and reduce contamination further?
Yeah, so the grant that we got as a follow-up is called Apt to Action, and we got a tremendous amount of data as a part of the implementing the grant. And it's really up to the WARMA board to determine how we want to use those grant funds. There's two avenues that we can take. The first is we can aim towards increasing participation, trying to get more people to recycle. We actually found that we had somewhere around in the 40s, I think it was between 42 and 46% participation rate, which means you put your cart to the curb over the period or every time, essentially. So we found that ours was a little bit lower than we expected. So that's one avenue that we could use to use these grant funds. The other is to try to continue to reduce contamination, and that would build the value of the stream. So we can either go for increasing capture or decreasing contamination, or some combination of both. But I kind of get the sense from the board that they're planning on increasing capture.
Okay. And one more question. Is there a particular method or means of communication with homeowners that seems to be more effective in terms of reducing the contamination?
Yeah, the Recycling Partnership provides a lot of technical expertise on this, and they've said that the most effective is the direct mailers because people are getting it right in their mail. It's going to every participant who is part of the program. So that's what they've seen become the most effective. We do a lot of other things because we want to reiterate that message, and that has funding provided in the grant as well. So the direct mailers has been the most effective. I think for this one, we may not have enough funding to do direct mailers to everyone, but that's the point of having such good data, as we can target much more effectively.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate the eagerness. It's good. The excitement is good. All right. Any other questions? Commissioner Scott.
I'm just thinking about, thank you, Chair. I'm just thinking about what Commissioner Maciejewski said. Like, I had to tell you, I learned I couldn't recycle my milk containers at the Green Fair. Like, it was like I was contaminating the stream. Maciejewski, it was me. So it was enlightening for me. And I think it was Sierra Club who had a little like this or that type of thing to recycle. I wonder, because mail is so expensive, would it be feasible or something to think about doing something that could be a social media ad, either like through Facebook or Instagram, because those can be so granular and targeted. It could even go to like a website. Look at me thinking all funny. It could even go to a website game, like recycle this or that, or, you know, like, and it might make it fun and educate people and not be as expensive as direct mail. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We did have a social media campaign, and we had an intern who made some pretty fun videos. that were well received, targeting plastic film specifically, because that's one of the biggest contaminants. We found that like 80% of the tags that we had were for plastic films. I like the game idea. I tried to pitch that to the board, but it was like an additional cost to one of the search engine things that we had. And the person who presented to me said that they haven't found a lot of direct connection with the game being really effective. And I was kind of bummed at that because I think it would be fun.
I feel like I could find you at least some good public health studies where it shows games actually can change behavior. I might have at least 3 of them on the counter behind me. So let me know if you need them.
Excellent. All right. Well, it sounds like there might be some interest in doing a series of PSAs where commissioners teach about recycling. That could be kind of fun.
That'd be very cool.
Yeah. Okay. There's some interest. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? Commissioner Machieski, hold on before we get to round 2. I know you're eager. Anybody for round 1 before we swoop back around for round 2? None. Okay. This is your topic, Commissioner Machieski. Go ahead.
It is. So I just wanted to point out, if Commissioner Scott is interested, the Western Washtenaw Recycling Authority has a mascot, Rocky the Raccoon. And they actually have an actual Rocky Raccoon suit. So if you wanted to come out and be Rocky the Raccoon and visit schools and talk to kids, do that outreach, I'm sure that they would be happy for you to do that at the Western Washtenaw Recycling Authority.
I'm ready.
This is great. I wasn't expecting this from this agenda item, but I love it.
I'm finished.
Okay. Do we got anything else from anybody? No. Okay. Robert, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes.
Item passed.
All right. Thank you. Okay, moving on to water resources. Hopefully this is as entertaining as the previous one.
So I'm not the warm-up act?
All right, do you got anything you want to tell us, or are you just ready for questions?
I'll just take the questions. Yeah, I don't want to keep anybody too long.
Okay, we appreciate that. Questions, anybody? Uh-oh. Maybe, I don't know if this one was as nothing, Commissioner Machieski, nothing on this. Nope. Okay. Great. So we got 2 items here. We'll go ahead and vote on that first one.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar.
Yes.
Item passed.
Excellent. Okay, any questions or comments about the second item, the Clean Sweep Grant Program? Sounds like a go. Oh, Commissioner Schenk, there we go. All right.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just have a comment because I don't want you to feel left out. Mr. Pratt is just, thank you. I'm excited about this and glad that it's happening.
Yeah, that's probably a Theo thank you, even though we work together.
All right. I think that might be it. All right, Robert.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski.
Yes.
Item passed.
Excellent. I thank you for being here, Water Resources Commissioner Pratt and Theo. This was good. Very enjoyable. All right. It's equalization time.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for 20 years since the passage of Act 35, it has been the responsibility of the Equalization Director to assist the Board of Commissioners in preparing the annual apportionment report. Previously, this had been the function of the County Clerk's office. We have taken seriously our commitment to the informing the board about the matter related to the millage levies and the limitation placed on by the Constitution and by the law. There is often no other available guidance about these rules apart from the law. Therefore, I have spent many years researching them and educating my staff about them. The following slides are very brief version of my findings regarding the 15, 18, and 50 mil limitation. These are most relevant to our county, and we came closer to this limitation. If after this presentation, you have any further question about millages or about equalization, do not hesitate to contact me for more information, or I will be happy to return to discuss the topic at a greater length during a future working session. So I'm going to try to quick as much as I can, but if you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask me. This is our apportionment report. And generally what we do that you have approved the equalization report in the month of April. We calculated the taxable value. And if you multiply that by millage rate and divide by 1,000, that will give you your revenue. That applies to single parcel, or it applies to the total township or total county. So basically, it's a very simple definition that annual equalization annual report organizes these rates, and this dollar distribution is in a apportionment report. Let me get this. Now, who is in charge? Who is responsible? Is the County Board of Commissioners. It is the responsibility of the County Board of Commissioners to make sure that monitor the apportionment report. And since the legislation has changed the Act 35 2001, they have placed this responsibility on equalization directors to make sure that I assist the Board of Commissioners to prepare the apportionment report. There are a couple of laws that you should be aware of. County Board of Commissioners shall not, I've been blocking my things here. County Board of Commissioners shall not authorize the levy of the tax unless the governing body of the taxing jurisdiction has certified that the requested millage has been reduced if necessary in compliance with the Section 31 of the Article 9 of the state constitution. So it is required by the Constitution that we make sure that all millages has been reduced. Also, let's look at the scope and consequences. We equalized the county in the month of April with the 24.9 billion. We calculated the taxable value 19.1 billion. We have 78 stakeholders in this county. They levy the property tax. And we have about 254 different millages in this county. 254. That you're going to see in that apportionment report. We have sent you electronic copy. And that's all we are approving. Each taxing jurisdiction must comply with the Hadley deduction. It is required by the Constitution, required by the law. Each millages is reviewed for the compliance of the 50 mil limitation. So we have to go through all 254 millages, and we have to make sure that everyone complies with the 50 mil limitation. And then the 50 mil comes from the Article 9 of subsection 6. The 15 and 18 mil limitation may be increased to the aggregate not to exceed 50 mil on each dollar of valuation or a period of not to exceed 20 years at any one time. So any millages after the 18 mil to the 50 mil, it cannot be more than 20 years old. So what we have in a county, that there are 41 out of 78 jurisdiction that levy that contributes to this limitation. One is the county, we have 14 township, 7 intermediate school district, and 19 school. Now you can see that I have put only 14 townships. There are 6 other townships in our county. They are exempt from the 50 mil limitation. And they are the Ann Arbor Township, Augusta Township, Pittsfield Township, Superior Township, York Township, and Ypsilanti Township. Those are the charter township, and they are exempt from the 50 mil limitation. So if you go through this exercise, and if you take all the township, one township may have a 3 school district, 1 county, and 1 intermediate school district. So if you go through all this exercise, you're going to find there are 75 combinations that we have to watch for it. So here's where we calculate the 50 mil limitation. We find out that who is eligible on a 50 mil limitation and who is not eligible for 50 mil limitation. This information which we have received comes from the bylaw, is guidance from the State Tax Commission, is the Attorney General's opinion, and a Washington County archive. Here are the millages we have to include in a 50 mil calculation. County operating, township operating, local K-12 school, ISD, set education, which is a 6 mil, which we pay for the education tax, debt not approved by the voters, operating for the charter township where the charter has not been approved by the voters. And these are all Hadley reduced millages. What is not included here is the charter millage for the county and township. Our county is not charter. Only 1 county in the state of Michigan out of 83 is Wayne County. Wayne County is charter township. So you see the township, we have 6 of them, which I already read the name. They are not included in it. City millages, all our city millages are not included in a 50 mil calculation. All the village millages not included. Any authority millages, ISD, debt approved by the voters, community college millages, and any judgment by the court. And the reason why city is not included in it, they are exempted under Article 9, subsection 6 of 1963 Constitution. That's why we do not include the city millages in it. So every governmental units, all 254 and 78 stakeholders, they have to file the form 4029 with the equalization department. And here's the example, just for the example purpose, I have put our county 4029. What we do on a 4029, we check all the dates, when it was voted, what was the original voted, how much has been reduced from the Hadley, what is the new reduction fraction, and what is the levy this year. We also see that this is the summer levy, this is the winter levy, and we also watch that when those millages are expired. We go through all the 78 4029 and we make sure that there is no violation in our levying. And also it has to be signed by either the chair or local board, or here in this case, we have signed by our clerk's office, and it is signed by our chair of the board. So this is the process and procedure we use in our county. And then we calculate all the 50 mil limitation. This all highlighted millages are qualified under the 50 mil limitation. And you can see on the right-hand side, these are the 50 mil limitation on every township and school district. So what we are finding right now that our lowest one in our county is the 30.9 mil and highest one is a 43.1 mil. Now lowest one is the Pittsfield Township in a Milan School District, and a 43 mil is the Northfield Township Ann Arbor School District. That's the highest one. So let's look at the Northfield Township Ann Arbor School District. These are the total millages in a Northfield Township. And you can see that 6.8767 is the county, 6.94 is the township, 0.909 is the ISD, and also you see the school district, and also you see the 6 mil for the SAT education. So if you add together, you have a 43.1640, and still we have in this our county 6.8360 left to hit the 50 mil limitation. We get a lot of inquiries about this thing, but this is the public information, so you can see that the 6 mil can be taken by the county, taken by the township, ISD, or anybody can take this 6 mil or combination of it. But we have a room only for 6 mil in this county. Now there is a couple of things I wanted to have you pay attention. Here in a Northfield Township, you can see that total voted is a 52 mil. That means they already voted over the 50 mil. But they are levying only 43 mil. And reason why they are levying only 43 mil, you see one of the mil in Ann Arbor School District is voted in 2018 was 12.37. After the Headley reduction, they have a 12.16, but they are levying only 2.8. Now, I know that they're not going to levy it right now because if there is a Headley reduction fraction, they're going to make it up with that millage. But this thing can happen to any township. Let's see what happens that if you have a 50 mil here and our county decide to go for a couple of mils for the extra voted millage rate. Are we able to levy that 2 mil or 1 mil, whatever approved by the voters? Because our millage goes to across the board. What I'm trying to give a message here that we cannot have that, we cannot levy in a Northfield Township and levy rest of the county. We cannot do that. This is my personal opinion. So we are running the little bit risk here that anytime any township goes to the 50 mil, combination of all four, no matter what we do in the future, we won't have any available millages to levy. Right now we have only 6 mil that can be taken by anybody. It depends on who votes first, who gets first from the public. Right now you have a 6 mil as of this year. It's very important slide for everybody to understand.
It is. It does sound very important. I want to take a moment to see if anybody has questions. And then I just want to also have a sense of how many more slides, because it's been about 10 minutes, so I want to make sure people get questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner. Can I go through or just?
Oh, no, you definitely go through. I just want to, before people forget their questions, does anybody have any questions right now about this slide or anything we've seen so far? Commissioner Shink, and if anybody else has your hand up, please use the raise hand icon because I can't see everybody because the presentation's on.
Okay, thank you. I'll just quickly say, Mr. Patel, thank you very much. I know that you've also been talking to some residents in Northfield Township about this, and I've heard that they greatly appreciate the amount of time that you took with them.
Thank you. So what we have here, let's have understanding about the 15, 18, and 50 mil limitation. This is my research, that what I have found out, that after the Proposal A and a school finance reform, you have a 15 mil, you have a 18 mil, and you have a 50 mil. The 15 mil is allocated by board. We used to have a allocation board in this county before 1964. It's a long time back. And then allocation board has at that time put together and given us the 4.80 for the county, 1 mil for the township, 0.80 for the intermediate school district, and the school district is 9.12. Then we came back with the 18. 18 is allocated by the voters, can be altered by the vote. And here is our mill. Since 1964 in this county, we are levying this way. Our county was 550, 116, 12, and 11, 12 for the school district. So we went from 480 to 550 for the county. It is voted by the people. And vote was the 25,000 yes and 20,000 no. It's about 55 to 45 ballot, and it passed at that time in 1964. Just look at the 50 mil. It's voted by the people for each millage increase over the allocation of 15 or 18 mil. So you can go from 15 to 50 mil or 18 to 50 mil, but those are all extra voted millage. Not to exceed millage 20 years at one time. Now you see in a Northfield Township in Ann Arbor School District, Ann Arbor School District had voted in 2018, but it expires in 2038. So those are the 20 years millage. So you cannot go more than 20 years. So here's what we have today, 18 mil plus all the voted millage. That's where we stand today in a county 43.1640. This is where how the 15, 18, and 50 mil works. And these are all heavily reduced millages. Let me show you one slide with what I found out 57 years ago, what the Board of Supervisors did. We went from 15 to 18 mil, and here is the ballot language for 57 years ago. It done in September of 1964. One of the best thing our Board of Supervisors did, that's why we are enjoying today, in my opinion, for last 50 years of experience, that instead of putting the 20 years here, they put the indefinite period. Think about that. Since 57, we may have to go back to the voters for 3 or 4 times to have a reapproval done. And then you have to have a negotiation between the county, township, and intermediate school district. Because when they did this 450 to 550, or they did with the 15 to 18 mil limitation, they went back 3 times. They negotiated 3 times before they finalized the 550 millage. Because you have to negotiate with all the parties. And there was 37 members in that committee. Okay, that represented by county, township, intermediate school districts, cities, and everybody else. And out of 37, 31 voted yes before it went to the voters. 2 voted no, and 4 were absent. That's where our ballot went to the public, and public passed that at that time. Voters passed that millage, and that's why we are enjoying today this 550, 116, and 12, and 11, 22 in this county. This is the history of our millage, 57 years ago. So let's look at the final result. What we did, this is the last slide. What we did, we equalized 24.9 billion, which is the 50% of market value. We calculated 19.1 billion. We have a 78 stakeholders. They levy the property tax in Washtenaw County, and we had 254 millages. And result was, at the end of the year, we've been levying in this county 955 million, almost 956 million this year in this county. That was increase of $40 million countywide. This is our responsibility. Commissioner, we are getting very close to $1 billion in a property tax in Washtenaw County. And it is responsibility of the County Board of Commissioner and Equalization Department to make sure that everything goes, those smoothly in equalization as well as the apportionment report. Now you can see that 956 million, 53% goes to school. 22.5% goes to local school. County gets the 14.18%. Community college gets the 6.7 and library gets the 3.49. This is we call the apportion. We are apportioning this dollar, but we are apportioning based on what been voted by the people. In a 15 mil, it apportioned by the apportion committee. Now this one we are apportioning by the what the people has told us to apportion. So this is the overall, and also some more data I can share with you that 955,996,000, and if you divide that by taxable value, right now our average tax rate in overall county with the weighted average tax rate is 50.0032. That is our average tax rate. Last year, our average tax rate was 49.65. Year before, 48.84. In other words, in the last 4 years, average is a 49.31. That is our average tax rate in Washtenaw County. And that includes all the agriculture, commercial, industrial, residential, and all other properties in it. This is only taxable properties, not exempt property. And also, overall county-wide, we are getting revenue this year increased 4.37% increase from last year to this year. Before that, every year county-wide, we got 6.47 increase. In 2019, we received 6.15% increase. In 2018, we received 6.79% increase. But if you take average of 4 years, we are receiving almost 6% increase per year in Washtenaw County on a property tax. Actually, it's a 5.95, but close to 6%. This is our revenue coming to the county every year from the property tax. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. If you have any question.
All right. Where's my video? Can't see me. There I am. Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation. I really liked all the animations. They really made some of those details pop. So thank you. Let's go into the questions now. Commissioner Morgan.
Ramon, thank you for all of that. I have one quick question on the mill rate cap. And I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So we have that 50 mill rate cap.
Mm-hmm.
Is that by municipality or jurisdiction? So, because you have Ann Arbor taxes, Superior Township taxes, you have different tax rates in each jurisdiction. How do you, what's that?
One thing that all the city of Ann Arbor taxes is not included in it because they are exempt from the Constitution, okay? Any charter township, they are not included in it. So these taxes are between 4 units of government: county, township, school district, and a set education, which is a 6 mil. It has to be 4 combination. The rest of them is all exempt.
Oh, okay. That's extremely helpful to know. Would the ride be included in that?
Which one?
The ride, AATA?
No, because it's the city of Ann Arbor millages, right? It is their millages, right? City of reason why we are exemption on the cities, because they are charter. And charter is always approved by the voters, isn't it? And voter has decided to do that. Okay? But this rest of them is not the charter. It is given by the Constitution. We started with the Constitution with the 15 mil. And in 63 Constitution, they are allowing us that, okay, county, if you wanted to go from 15 to 18 mil, you go to the voters and have approval done. So what we happened that when we were levying the 15 mil, at that time, our Board of Supervisors decided to go to the voters to have a permanent location. Okay, that's why we went on 18. But also Constitution says that if you wanted to go further than 18, okay, 18 to, you can go all the way to the 50, but those are all extra voted millage. Okay, that means that right now we went all the way to the 43.16 and we have a room for the 6.8 mil right now. So if the county decides to go further, then you got the 6 mil before somebody else jumps in. That's why I give that example of the Northfield Township and Arbor School District, that they already voted for the 52 mil, right? But they are levying only less than 52 mil. But they already have approval. They can come in and ask for the levy. We can be stopped everywhere in this county. So it depends on how long. Reason why I brought slide here, that we have to think about it, how long you wanted to wait for it. Okay, there may not be room in the future for us. Or it is true for the township, it is true for ISD, and it's true for the school. So we are getting very, very close. That's all I'm trying to say to you. And that's the reason I brought that slide here today.
So to sum up, just so I can make sure I understand it correctly.
Yes, yes.
We might hit that cap and then no one would be able to do any more
Exactly
villages.
right. Now,
So then-
but not the no one, but particularly it concerns to us at the county because our levy is across the board, isn't it? Right? We cannot say that, okay, Northfield Township, we are 50 mil, we're not going to levy to you, but we're going to levy to the rest of the township and city. I don't think so we can do that. This is my personal opinion. And that's the reason I'm bringing this subject to you.
Okay.
But maybe other township may not get affected by it, even though Northfield get affected at the 50. Okay, still they have a room. They can go ahead and do it. But Northfield Township got stuck. But also our millage is across the board. That's the main point what I'm trying to bring here. We have to be very careful about it.
Okay, I got it. This is very interesting. So we might want to think about doing something like a general operating millage before it's too late.
Commissioner, we got only 6 mil left, 6.8 mil left. Okay, it depends on who's going to go fast. Okay, and just like I say, that Northfield Township already have a 52 mil. And I know they're not going to levy it all the way to that Ann Arbor School District. And those millages are for 20 years. 20 years. So I'm just going to, I just wanted to bring it in. And if you wanted to more detail about this thing, I'll be glad to come back to the one of the working session and explain to you.
Okay.
But
I might reach out too, just by myself to learn more.
Anytime, in equalization, and this is my investigation and this is my research. I went all the way to the 1964, 57 years ago, what our Board of Supervisors did. And I have to say that I've been very, very happy that I'm glad that Board of Supervisors did, and they went on a permanent allocation instead of going with the 20 year. You just think about it, that if you go 20 years, we have to go back to the voters 3 times, right? And plus we have to negotiate with the township, cities and everything. And if you read that minutes, 1957 minutes, you can find out that how much negotiation happened in our county to have it for those 3 mills. Township wanted to have a more mill, county wanted to have a more mill, then you have to go through all the negotiation. So this is the best thing happened, that our Board of Supervisors went in on a permanent millage. So that's why we are enjoying today.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have any other last questions from any commissioners? Not seeing any. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if you want me to come back, I'll be glad to come back on a working session to give you more slides. I have more slides. This is the very limited slides I'm showing you.
Okay. Well, the working session is up to Commissioner Maciejewski, but I really enjoyed this, and I will certainly be reaching out to learn more soon.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think we have to vote to accept the report. I do. Robert.
Commissioner Sanders,
She's thinking about it. Why don't you circle
I will
back?
circle back. Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders.
Michelle, what do we do?
You can come back and get her vote.
We're gonna come back and get you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you,
let's-
Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciated it. Okay. Finance. Anybody for finance want to talk about this capital improvement refunding bonds series 2022? Refunding of series 2014 and 2015?
We do have bond counsel, John Axe, tonight as well. if there are
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Tina Gavalier is here along with our bond counsel, John X.
Good evening, commissioners. I apologize. My computer was frozen and I kept clicking on the button and I don't know what I was doing, but I'm live now. Yes, for this item, bond counsel John Axe and our financial consultant, Stephen Burke is on the call to answer any questions you may have. It's basically just refinancing previous series 2014 and 2015 refunding issuance. Approximate savings over the life of the debt schedule would be $562,000, and it does not extend debt repayment. It still ends in year 2028.
Thanks. Commissioners, questions? Not seeing any, no inquisitive faces. Robert?
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders.
Yes.
Item passed.
Excellent. Thank you, Tina, and thank you, everybody. Let's circle back and get vote for Commissioner Sanders for the previous vote.
Commissioner Sanders, your vote on the equalization 2021 apportionment report.
Yes.
Item passed.
Yes, we passed it. Okay. All right, moving on to the next item. We've got administration. Administration.
We have the 2021 non-general fund budget adjustments. Tina Gavalier is here. Between the two of us, we'll walk you through any specifics around this. Tina, do you want to talk through the program funds that will increase?
Sure. So no general fund adjustments for this third quarter budget adjustment. It all has to do with non-general funds, mostly special revenue funds and some internal service funds. So I'll just highlight the changes. 100,000 for the Sheriff's Office Drug Forfeiture Fund to upgrade evidence room ventilation system. 100,000 for the Sheriff's Office Inmate Enterprise Fund for new inmate tablets with communication and entertainment technology. 45,000 for Shop with a Cop program. And that's just, it's totally funded by donations and the benefit of children. $20,000 adjustment for the 911 maintenance fund for increased fleet charges. 500,000 increase to the Sheriff Technology Capital Fund for renewed technology contracts for body cams and video conferencing. $384,953 increase in the fleet fund for maintenance and mobile health clinic purchase. $915,000 increase in risk management for use of fund balance just due to claims and settlements spiking this year. $365,000 for workers' comp fund, again, based on claims and settlements. for the current year, and then 355,000 for the severance fund for settlement payouts for accrued time. I can answer any questions you may have.
Looking for hands here. Oh, Commissioner Morgan.
One quick question on the funds that are related to the sheriff's office, Tina, are those new expenditures from the general fund, or are those things that are already within the sheriff's budget?
They are non-general fund programs. So they're housed in special revenue funds for specific purposes, and they would be a combination of funding within those funds for the purpose of why those funds were created. And some may include transfers from the general fund, which would be the public safety portion of the sheriff's millage. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep.
Right. Anybody else? No. Okay. Well, that just means it was thorough. It was thorough. Okay. Robert.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Item passed.
All right. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, team. We're going to keep it going now. We are moving into report of the county administrator. Looks like you got 2 items for us.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm joined this evening by our Chief Financial Officer, Tina Cavalier, and Catherine Jones from Finance, and we would like to present the third quarter budget update and associated budget adjustments. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Catherine. I believe you're going to lead the presentation.
Yes, I will. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, you should all be able to see my screen now, right?
No screen.
Not yet.
Okay, let me try that again.
Sorry, these things happen.
There we go.
There we
Is that
go.
better? Okay,
Yep.
great. This, and our agenda tonight will go through the general fund budget adjustments that have happened year to date. We'll highlight revenue and expenditure variances and the net projected status of the general fund, touch on some structural and non-structural investment considerations. Excuse me, the status of non-general funds, a summary of the recommended quadrennial budget, and then end with an overall summary and next steps for that budget. Before highlighting revenues and expenditures, I just wanted to take a few minutes to go through the general fund budget adjustments that have been approved by the board year to date. On June 2nd, you approved 2 structural adjustments. The first for the increase in property taxes, allocating $500,000 for personal services and the remainder to the undesignated allocation. The second is to account for increased state revenue sharing and county incentive program and recreational marijuana payments, which allocated $231,000 for equity program expansion and the remainder to the undesignated allocation. And then additionally, a non-structural adjustment was adopted for an additional $385,000 in recreational marijuana revenue and increasing the undesignated allocation in the same amount. On July 7th, 3 non-structural budget adjustments were authorized. The first, increasing the use of fund balance from the 2020 year-end surplus for the match requirement for the corridor fiber optic backbone project. The second is an allocation of up to $1.9 million in general fund balance for the unspent 2020 compensation study allocation to cover the full cost of the one-time non-structural lump sum payment to employees.
The last was an allocation of up to $500,000 from general fund balance to support the response to widespread or severe damage and injury or loss of life or property caused by heavy rainfall. On September 15th, the board authorized 3 non-structural budget adjustments. The first was an allocation of $5.8 million of general fund balance in alignment with the ARPA allocations. The second was to increase governmental revenue for personal property tax reimbursement and CARES Act grant revenues to fund the continued COVID-19 response. And the last was to recognize the sale of the Platte Road property revenue and to budget the interfund transfer to capital reserves. And then lastly, on October 6th, the board allocated up to $75,000 in direct disbursements for survivors of gender-based and domestic violence, which was funded from use of fund balance. Additionally, per policy, in your agenda packet tonight, under the report of the administrator, you will find the quarterly budget adjustment report for July 1st through September 30th. There are 2 budget adjustments between $25,000 and $100,000 that were completed within administrative authority. The first is the quarterly dish transfer, and the second is reserving surplus from the Munis implementation project to fund future Munis enhancements. Moving on to budget projections and starting with general fund revenues. There on this slide totals a net general fund revenue surplus of $1.1 million. The clerk and register of deeds has a projected surplus of $1.2 million due to real estate transfer tax and recording fee receipts. The first 3 quarters of 2021 revenues are trending $1.3 million more than the first 3 quarters of 2020 activities. In 2020, there was a $368,000 surplus, which was a little bit less than the prior year. For the general government, their departments, there's a net surplus of $250,000 in revenues from the Water Resources Commissioner and then the Support Services departments. The prosecuting attorney has a surplus of $134,000 due to state revenue reimbursements for Crime Victim Rights Program. And then moving or shifting to departments where have revenue shortfalls. Most are coming from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic that is continuing to reduce operational revenues. The trial court has a projected shortfall of $530,000, which is in alignment with the actuals from fiscal year 2020 and is due to reduced court activities and state court equity payments. The trial court does have a projected expenditure surplus that will offset the projected revenue shortfall, resulting in a net surplus of $146,000. Continuing with other general fund revenue shortfalls, there is a total net general fund revenue shortfall highlighted on this slide as well. District Court has a projected shortfall of $922,000, which again is in alignment with the actuals from fiscal year 2020 and is due to reduced court activities, fees and services, and fines and forfeitures revenues. District Court does have a projected expenditure surplus that will offset a portion of the projected revenue shortfall, resulting in a net shortfall of $638,000. For the Sheriff's Office, there's a projected shortfall of $1.4 million, due primarily to Sheriff Services revenue for significant reductions in special event overtime reimbursements through the 3rd quarter and civil division revenues. The Sheriff's Office has a projected expenditure surplus of $1.5 million that will offset this revenue shortfall, resulting in a net expenditure surplus of $94,000. Then the current adopted 2021 budget does include the planned use of fund balance. And since this is a budgeted figure with no actual amounts posted to the general ledger, the use of fund balance will always show as a shortfall. For 2021, $9.8 million of general fund balance has been allocated to multiple purposes throughout 2021, 8.1 million of which was allocated in the third quarter. Once spent, this will reduce the fund balance available for emergency responses and operational needs in the future. And as we approach year end, it is important to wait until we've completed the audit to determine the financial impact of a number of items and the audited fund balance at the end of the year before continuing to make allocations. And then overall, to summarize, general fund revenue variances, the general fund is currently projected to have a revenue shortfall of 11.1 million, the majority of which comes from the budgeted planned use of fund balance. Moving on to the general fund expenditures, COVID-19 continues to have a substantial impact on county operations. This slide highlights a net surplus of 8.8 million. Omitting the district and trial courts, the sheriff's office, and the county's COVID-19 response expenses within the general fund. All other departments combined with a net budget surplus of 4.2 million within personal services, primarily due to the budgeted allocations for implementation of the compensation study, administrator planned initiatives for reorganizations, attrition, position vacancies, and a nominal operating surplus. Central charges and reserves have a projected surplus of 3 million due to lower than budgeted tax refund payments, the remaining undesignated allocation, and then budgeted contingencies. The sheriff's office is projected to have a surplus of 1.5 million as a result of attrition and position vacancies. The sheriff's office expenditure surplus, it will offset their revenue shortfall for a net surplus of 94,000. On this slide, there's an additional net general fund surplus of 1.3 million. The trial court has a projected surplus of 677,000, primarily due to attrition and vacancies that fully offsets their projected revenue shortfall. Net projected trial court expenditure surplus will be 146,000. The district court has the projected surplus of 284,000 due to attrition, vacancies, and leaves that partially offset their projected revenue shortfall, resulting in a net revenue shortfall of 638,000. The county continues to have the required emergency response to COVID-19 and the impacts of that response on operations and financials. There are currently two types of expenses, FEMA eligible and non-eligible expenses for the county's COVID-19 response. Fortunately, the health department received enough grant funding to cover the cost of the COVID-19 vaccination efforts, allowing us to cancel our application for FEMA funding. Additionally, the first FEMA project activities have been minimal throughout 2021 and have also drawn to a close. The final reports are in process and close to 2.5 million was submitted for reimbursement. We continue to wait to receive any reimbursement from this original application. Non-eligible for reimbursement COVID expenditures continue for utilities for sheltering at the LRC, security, storage trailers, deep cleaning, and technology purchases. There are budgeted contingencies specifically for the county's continued response. Furthermore, please recall that the board authorized 2 resolutions for the use of fund balance in the amount of 3.45 million to support the emergency response to the COVID-19 pandemic if needed and necessary. During fiscal year 2020, 642,000 of this allocation was used for non-reimbursable expenditures. Combining the total projected 2021 expenditures with fiscal year 2020 actuals would result in 1 million of this allocation being spent. Overall, combining all of the net general fund expenditure surpluses, the total will be just over $10 million. On this slide, the intent is to link the account category variances to the specific bullets by department organization already highlighted. To reiterate, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a substantial impact on operations for both revenues and expenditures, as demonstrated by the variances by account category. The revenue categories most impacted across the county with shortfalls are fees and services, fines and forfeitures, and other revenues. The expenditure categories reveal that personal services savings result in a surplus that offsets operational over expenditures across the county for increased expenses due to our required emergency response to the pandemic. To summarize the slide in total projected expenditures exceed total projected revenues for a projected shortfall of 1.1 million. The 2020 year-end fund balance was 44.4 million, or 33.7% of 2021 budgeted expenditures. If the if the 1 million is subtracted from fund balance at 12/31/21, the total fund balance will decrease to 43.3 million and be 30.7% of current budget. Displayed here is a comparison of the 2021 general fund budget projections as they've developed through the quarters this year and the trends of how these have changed. Revenue projections have improved over time, with expenditures remaining relatively stable except for the increased use of fund balance. Given that the 9.7 million of fund balance is budgeted to be used, the remaining expenditures are trending better than budget. As a reminder, when looking at potential investments, structural investments which have costs that occur each year should only be made with revenue sources that also occur each year. Annual surpluses which exceed the planned contribution to fund balance as confirmed by the audit and reported by the year-end report may be considered for one-time investment by the Board of Commissioners for their priorities and principles. Decisions on utilizing these funds are made annually. Also, for your reference, here is the recommended 22 through 25 quadrennial budget, which I know we'll be discussing later. Moving on to the non-general funds, all but one of our non-general funds are projected to have surpluses this year. Risk management is projected to have a shortfall of 931,000 due to increased claims and settlements. Their current fund balance is 1.3 million, which will cover these shortfalls and is included in the budget adjustments you just passed through Ways and Means tonight. We continue to monitor the same revenue items as new information becomes available, including the annual impact of the equalization report and the growth in property taxes, clerk and register of deed revenues, the continued CMH funding issues due to reduced state Medicaid allocations and capped rates, potential legislation removing the ability to assess court costs in criminal cases, which would further exacerbate revenue issues at the courts, and the phase out of personal property tax revenue. Additionally, we continue to monitor the same expenditure items for their impact, including capital infrastructure and space needs due to significant reduction in county capital appropriations since 2008, rising child care fund expenditures due to caseloads, placements, and age change per resolution, right-sizing CMH services with available revenues, health and human services funding considerations, and then union contract obligations and fringe benefit trends. Lastly, the remaining 2021 budget activities are continued engagement for allocation of the American Rescue Plan Act funds, the year-end report, which will come in March or April of 22, and then continued deliberation and adoption of the 22 through 25 quadrennial budget. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. I like that presentation. It's good to see everything. It just really makes you think about all the things that we've done over the last several months. All right. Let's see. Questions, comments from anybody? Commissioner
Chair, just to,
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead. No.
No, it's okay. If Mr. Dill wants to go first, I'm happy to wait. Maybe he'll answer my question.
No, I was just going to state that, I feel very confident about how we'll close out the year. Our expenditures are continuing to trend better than budget. Let's hope that continues. And I just want to thank the board for their stewardship and the organization for their discipline. I think those are the two things that make us an effectively run county. So just wanted to say thank you.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Shane, go ahead.
Thank you. So my question is about the COVID-19 response. We allocated up to 3.45 million. And I want to understand, when we say that only $1 million was spent, is that net of reimbursements, or is that we just spent $1 million?
That is the amount that has been spent for ineligible reimbursements. So, yeah, we've spent $2.5 million in FEMA eligible activities as well as numerous grants.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Commissioner Morgan.
One quick question. I heard a comment regarding the Platte Road funds and reference to the funds from the sale of Platte Road going into an infrastructure reserve fund. Is that a fund that would be used for infrastructure? My understanding with the Platte Road funds is that we would at some point have a proposal come back to the board, or we would make a proposal from the board as to how we wanted to utilize those funds. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Tina, let me take the first stab at that. So that resolution or direction can always come back from the board, but I think our tradition, and it may be included in policy, I'll go back and confirm it, is that the sale of assets goes into that fund. And we can certainly make a modification or shift those resources as the board wishes.
Could I just follow up? So if we were to, so the funds will be set aside there, then if there was a use of those funds, would that come back to the board for approval? Okay.
No question.
Okay, good. I'm not entirely convinced that everybody had the understanding that it would go to an infrastructure reserve fund. I think there was some conversation around, do we use that money for any number of other purposes that would be one-time purposes. I know we have a lot of one-time dollars right now, and so perhaps that is not a critical need, but that is helpful to know, and I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
And Commissioner, that's just where we've historically parked the dollars, and I'll use the term parked because at any point in time, the board can come back and reallocate or redirect those dollars.
Got it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Thank you for the presentation. This was not a action item. This was just a report. So Robert, you don't even have to call the roll this time.
And Chair, that will conclude my report.
All right. Well, let's move it on now to report of the chair of the board.
Well, thank you, Chair. My report will be very quick. I just want to say that I volunteered for a few hours at the expungement fair that was combined with a number of other things, including addressing warrants, eviction prevention, at the Freight House in Ypsilanti on Thursday. Oh, I don't know, Tuesday. Sorry. I think that might have been yesterday. Anyway, it was a really, really incredible event. It was wonderful to see our partnership with the prosecutor's office in working with prosecutor's office to fund the position of Francis Walters and the conviction integrity expungement unit, and just the stories that the few people I dealt with told about how important this was to them and their future and their lives was really compelling. So I just wanted to share that because that's a really, I felt really good about it and I wanted you to share in that. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to report of chair and ways and means. I got a couple of things here. One, I'll say that we've finished up the feedback process for the people that we interviewed for the assistant corporation counsel position. I think it was a really fantastic process. I was happy to be able to be part of it. And I think all of you will be happy with the selection, and we will learn more about that soon. Another item, many of you probably heard me talk about speed bumps and the need for speed bumps in some of the neighborhoods in my district, West Willow, and then my neighborhood, Sugar Brook. I want to express my gratitude to the Road Commission for amending the policy to requiring 51% of homeowners to sign the petition rather than 75%. 75% is a really big lift given the number of renters on many of the streets. So over last weekend before the listening session, I and a group of volunteers went and gathered signatures on 3 of the streets in Sugarbrook that had already qualified for the speed bumps, but now we're at that phase where we have to get the homeowners to sign. So we got about half of the signatures we needed in that go around, and we'll be doing it again. Originally we were going to do it on Sunday, but I'm glad we switched to Saturday because it was snowing really hard on Sunday. So we're going to keep on getting out there and trying to get the rest of those signatures by the end of the year. And then, okay, third thing that I'll say is I want to congratulate Administrator Dill for the award that he got. So we all received the email, but I want everybody else that's viewing at home to know too that Mentor to Youth, as part of their 10-year celebration, had their honors night, and Administrator Dill was awarded the John Bartfield Award of the Bishop, which is an award for honoring someone as a steward of public funds. So it was great to be able to be there for that award ceremony. Congratulations publicly, and thank you for all that you do to keep the county going. Great. Also want to congratulate Sheriff Clayton, who also received the award, but he's not here right now, so I'm not going to say a ton about that. But congratulations, Sheriff Clayton. Great, that's it for me. Let's move on to items for current and future discussion. Anybody got an item for current or future discussion that you want to throw out there? We do have a pending item. I didn't forget about it. Don't worry. Even if I forgot about it, I got my nice board portal open. So I see everything just very clearly there. Okay. No items for current or future discussion. None. Okay, we're gonna move on to pending items now. So as we begin our discussion about budget reaffirmation, I want to reiterate that this is our last, we have to move it out of Ways and Means today to stick to our desired timeline. So let's talk this through and then vote on it. Does anybody want to say anything about it? Commissioner Labar.
Thanks, Chair. I'm fine moving it out of Ways and Means. Again, that still leaves us 2 weeks to make any final adjustments to it, and just procedurally makes sense. So I would support that. And Michelle, I don't know if it's pending, do we need a motion to do that, or is it already motioned?
It's already live from when it was first moved. So all that's required is discussion and then a vote.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, so it's alive and well, so we'll just keep discussing it. Go ahead, Commissioner Morgan.
Thanks, Chair. I think we still need to move. So I think it based on some conversation I've had with Greg and admin on the 2 requests I had for positions. I still want to have some more conversation with him in the next couple of weeks. But I do want to move proposed amendment regarding policy 45, which is the environmental language in sustainability language in the budget. That was developed by or written by Andrew to just update the sustainability language to reflect what we're actually working on going forward, rather than the old language that's been in there for a few years that we have not quite followed. So I will move that amendment.
Support.
All right, any discussion on proposed amendment policy number 45? Commissioner Schenk.
I know that the language wasn't really reflective of what was happening up until this amendment. And it took us, well, I guess until now to bring it all together. And so I just want to say I support this amendment.
Okay, any other discussion? Not seeing any. Okay, Robert.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk.
Yes.
Item passed.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. Further discussion on the budget before I It's the last call here for comments before I go ahead and ask Robert to call that roll. Commissioner Morgan, is that a new hand or old hand?
That is a new hand, so I can wait and see if others have comments.
Yeah, you got to wait till round 2.
Just didn't want to miss it. Didn't want to move on without me.
All right. Anybody else for round 1 to comments before we circle back? Nope. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you. So I do have a question, I think primarily for Tina here. I wanted to make sure, and I appreciate you taking the time to respond to my several questions through email. I'm always trying to just make sure I fully understand where the funds are going in the budget. So I do have one last question here, which is thinking about, so for the last several years, we've exceeded the 1.5% budgeted estimate for increases in property tax growth. This has resulted in revenue that is quite a bit greater than what's been approved in each of the 21 to 2024 budget last year. So as I've been looking at our 2021 budget amendment that we approved this past June, I believe that number was $2.4 million for this year. That was additional revenue above what was estimated. And so I know we have a policy to set aside the first $500,000 to prepare for implementation of the MAG study, which I believe would have left us as $1.9 million of structural funding. Based on the budget amendment, I believe the rest of that $1.9 million was allocated to the undesignated allocation. So it lived somewhere until it was designated for a specific use. That was kind of the question I was hoping to get to in my email around where that 1.9 million is going. And so that's where I'm wondering, can you tell us how much of the 1.9 million of the increased structural funding has been spent to date? What those expenses are?
So for the current year, Commissioner, fiscal year 2021, there is an amount remaining in the undesignated allocation. So for the current year, there's still an amount remaining. I don't have the exact amount, but I would expect it's going to be over $2 million sitting in undesignated allocation for this current fiscal year. When we prepared the administrator's recommended budget, just due to the natural increases in operations, recalculating salary projections, as well as receiving the updated cost allocation plan. If you look on the last page of your cover memo, it shows you the increases and the decreases by category. And you'll see that in the other services and charges category, there was a $1.8 million reduction, which was part of that 1.9. Remember, these are net variances. So there's other variances happening, not just the undesignated allocation being reduced. But on the cover memo summary, it reflects a number of $1.8 million reduction in that category. Of that $1.8 million reduction, $1.2 million went to internal service charges, which includes the cap charges for departments, as well as fleet services. So that's vehicles that departments have. And one of the biggest departments that have fleets, obviously, is the sheriff's office. So that category was increased by $1.2 million because there was operational increases for those items in that category. And then personnel services was increased about $855,000. And that was due to updating salary projections, as well as the compounding recognition to increase personnel services by a portion of the already increased amount allocated for the 500,000, because the first 500,000 that compounds going forward to carry that forward. So really, truly, it's just you received the budget adjustment in June that adjusted the 4 years. And then this recommended budget is showing you where the increases and the decreases by category occurred with that undesignated allocation. Does that help?
I think so. I guess it was my understanding when we had that additional revenue that we would sort of then allocate that as a board later down the road here.
Well, per policy in the budget resolution is the structural dollars, which property tax increases are structural dollars, get allocated or recommended for use in the third quarter, so right around the recommended budget time. And non-structural year-end surpluses get recommended for use after the financial statements and the audit are completed in April.
Okay, I think I'm maybe following. I guess I was thinking when we received those funds, it seemed like we would then come back and determine how we want to use those funds later on in a structural basis. And the only reason I'm sort of raising this concern is because we, if not just for the couple of positions I was proposing for consideration, but we're generally told as commissioners we want to create new positions or fund new initiatives or increase funding areas, then we have to find where the funds are. It was my understanding that we would still have more funds available because we didn't allocate those structural dollars. And it just feels to me like they've just been allocated for us and we haven't really had much input on that. And maybe I'm misunderstanding that. Could you maybe try to respond to that?
Can I offer there is $500,000 available for use that remains still $250,000 in undesignated allocation that's in that other services and charges category, as well as another $250,000 for Board of Commissioner priority allocation use. So that totals each year, 2022 to 2025, $500,000 that can be at the discretion of the board to determine what the allocation should be. So potentially it is structural, it's in there structurally, that could be a source for your pending budget modifications, positions that you've identified or proposed.
I guess I'll defer to others. Seems like others have questions, but perhaps we'll raise my hand again later.
We'll swing back around here for round 3. Don't worry. Commissioner LaBarre.
Sure. Tina, can you expand a little bit? And this is somewhat asked about, I think, a meeting or two ago. When we say that it's per policy, I kind of think it at this point that is sort of an autopilot directive to where the money should either go or remain unless we say differently. Can you talk a little bit about more what exactly that policy says, where it is, and how we could reconsider it if we wanted to? Is this at the top of the budget resolution every year, the 30 or so that are spelled out, or am I thinking of some place that's off?
So I think you're talking about the structural versus the non-structural allocations policy. Is that correct?
At the risk of sounding ignorant, I'm talking about whatever Jason just mentioned. Sorry.
Okay, well, that's the policy that I'm referencing. So it is, hold on, I'm looking right now to make sure I have a page number for you. On page 14 of your budget resolution, it is item number 12, and it starts at the bottom of page 14 and it continues at the top of 15. There is some prioritization with regard to some of the allocations that would be in consideration for capital allocations for ongoing space equipment technology needs. The 500,000 is a separate policy for implementation of the compensation study. That's item number 40 on page 19. But I do have to say, yes, the allocations are driven by policy, but also what the budget demonstrates is we have a budget assumption of what our revenue increases are, and we obviously propose a budget that is balanced and in alignment with that on expenditure side. But because when we realize the property tax increase, we do that budget adjustment, and then when we bring the quadrennial budget forward, the recommended budget forward, what it's demonstrating is operational cost increases are outpacing what our budget assumption is. So although the allocations are guided by policy, that is after we fill the gaps for the operational increases. Does that help?
So in essence, we can rhetorically or either by resolution seek to dictate that we'll come back to this money when we have it on hand and decide on its purpose later. But if we don't do that in between the time that you bring forward the next budget, it takes almost by, for lack of a better term, inertia, which is the policy and the realities of the budget that you have to maintain. It will go to those holes essentially that happen with cost increase and those sorts of things. Is that roughly correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we would truly have to isolate and sort of affirmatively lock a chunk of money to really be able to come back to its purpose without it being impacted by existing policy, right?
Yes, but we do, the administrator always is conscious of board priorities and principles. And so we do try to still include that an amount for future allocations in the recommended budget. And so the current 4-year budget has the 500,000 for that purpose.
Sure, and yeah, I say none of this to assign blame or wrong or anything. That I just want to understand it clearly in my own mind. It's sort of like if I throw $1,000 from something into the broader checking account, I can pull that out later, but I might have to spend some of it on rent in the meantime.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Tina.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Scott.
Thanks, Chair. I'm thinking about this question. I think that probably we're all thinking about a little bit about thinking we have this $2.4 million in excess. What we're seeing in a budget is just an allocation of where that money is going with less discussion, I think, than we're all feeling we would like to see. Some of it, I think, has taken some of us aback, particular parts of where that money is being spent. So I would like to propose, thinking it doesn't help to complain about it. It helps to think about a solution, that when we have projected budget surpluses like this, like $2.4 million in a budget surplus, that we have a clear presentation to us from administration on where they think that money should be spent or where it's going to need to be spent, and get input from us as commissioners on where that should be spent as well, rather than coming to us as de facto spending, saying that this is where that money is going to because these are where these different shortfalls are, or this is someplace where the money needs to be sent. I don't want to point my fingers at any one place or another, but going forward, I would appreciate if we could think about excess in a more kind of collegial commissioner way, rather than just being presented something at the end saying, this is where it's gone. I think that all of us are probably more interested in thinking about the budget that way. And so I would ask that in following years, we do it that way. And if that needs to be kind of codified via resolution policy, I'm more than happy to craft something that looks like that, just to make sure that we get that to come forward to us. That's it. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Schenk.
Thank you. And Commissioner Scott, I like that idea a lot. My question is that it seems that and I didn't get it. I wasn't able to write down everything you said about where that structural money went. And so this is not to be picking on the sheriff's office, but where is the policy that they would just get $1.2 million from what I understand to be our undesignated allocation? And why isn't that coming out of money that's already within the sheriff's office budget?
It did not necessarily go all to the sheriff's office. Just the sheriff's office has the highest number of fleet vehicles in the general fund. So I would remember what I'm reading you is from a category account, not by department. So
Okay.
I would like some time if you want to know the variances with regard to the increases to the sheriff's office. I would like to take some time and get that information for you. I don't want you to make that assumption at this point, just based on my statement, just because I'm looking at it from a category account perspective and not by a department, program, or activity perspective.
Okay, so I wonder then for this, I guess we must have a policy that directs it. And I will say that 2 years of working on the budget remotely without a printed copy is taking a toll. I think a printed copy for something that's this complex. I mean, I could have asked for it earlier. I didn't, so I'm not criticizing, but I think next year we need to have printed copies, everybody, unless they say, no, I don't want one, because it just gets really complex trying to do it on my screen. But I would like to understand better to Commissioner Morgan's questions, how the undesignated or how the budget surplus that's structural, which I understand goes into the undesignated allocation, how that's processed through, because I'm not sure that I do understand it and well enough. And I know that we have made some allocations, but I guess I was always kind of thinking that there was more that we would decide how we would use it. And I think I'm maybe not the only one on the board who's feeling that way. And I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just telling you what I need to understand and feel more comfortable with the situation is. Thank you. That's all.
Administrator Dill.
I would just a couple brief comments. I really favor the framework that Katie laid out. I think as we move forward, we need to start to migrate to something like that. I'll just say one thing that I thought about as we were moving through this conversation is we always talk about our property tax growth as if that is a clean number, and it isn't, because we don't include the cost of doing business year over year. We don't include some of the structural changes that we've made. If we've added a position or two in the last fiscal year, those costs carry over from year to year. So I think we can, and I'll talk to Tina tomorrow, we can put together a high level summary of what has happened over the last 18 months. I think that'll be helpful, but I think starting to migrate to a framework similar to what Commissioner Scott just raised might be helpful for us. And please, everyone, don't forget about the cost of doing business, because I don't think we talk enough about that.
Thank you. All right, so before we go back to Commissioner Morgan for round 3, does anybody else for round 2 or their round 1? Not seeing any. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you. I do have one other follow-up. So it looks like that funding or the structural funding was allocated for 2021, or has that structural funding been allocated throughout all of the next 4 years of the budget?
You're talking about the excess property tax growth, the 1.9 million?
Yeah, because that would carry through each budget, right?
Yeah, it's recommended for use or went to operational increases, the cost of doing business starting in 2022 and beyond. We still have an undesignated allocation for the current year, fiscal year 2021.
Oh, so we didn't spend the money this year or allocate it this year. We allocated it for those future years. That's what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
And how much did you say is left in that? So that would be like one-time money basically this year if we've already allocated budget for
Correct. It will fall to fund balance if it's not allocated prior to year end. I don't know the exact amount without looking it up, Commissioner Morgan, but I would anticipate it's about 1.9 million.
Okay. That's helpful. Okay, so okay, that makes sense. That just seems, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here at this point, but it feels like that's a lot of funds to allocate to just the cost of doing business. Maybe if you could share more with us as a follow-up to perhaps, and maybe you pointed somewhere in the budget where all of that's going, and I think you outlined it. So it's vehicles, personnel, or fleet personnel. Is that correct? That's what you're outlining?
Yes, that was part of it. Cost allocation plan.
Okay.
So the cover memo gives the detailed narrative of all the variances, the increases and the decreases.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions or thoughts here? It's been a good discussion so far. Not seeing any. All right, your turn, Robert.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
No.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Can I ask a quick clarifying question?
I'm okay with that. Michelle, is that cool?
Depends on what the question is.
Well, I can ask it. We can still amend it at the board, right? That's just, I just want to make sure. Okay, yes.
Commissioner Beaman.
Yes.
Item passed.
All right. All right. Okay, not rare that we don't have a unanimous one, but we didn't this time. Okay, moving on. So it's the only other item. Oh, thank you, Tina. Thank you for answering all those questions. It sounds like there are many more questions to come and a new framework for us to be looking at. So thank you for everybody for participating in a really rich discussion. I thank Administrator Dill for your insight in this too. Great. So before I ask for someone to motion to adjourn, I'm going to say 5-minute break for our viewers at home. We have a whole second meeting, so don't drop off. We know our viewership drops off when we take this 5-minute break, but so please stick around for the second meeting. Now I'll look for someone. So we're going to come back at 8:50. So somebody motion
Move
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Is there a second?
Support.
All in favor? Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Go to the bathroom, get some water, come back in 5 minutes. All right. It was a good meeting. Good time. How we all doing? Feeling good? Commissioner Scott, any fancy dinner today?
Oh, it was a very busy night where I literally ran into the house at like 6:28. But tomorrow night we'll be having a nice Dutch oven roasted chicken breast with a walnut sherry vinaigrette on a bed of greens.
Are the greens massaged? Because last time you had to massage your kale.
I do not have to massage these greens, but I'm going to tell you, as a kale aficionado that I'm teased very much for loving my kale, it is much better when you give it a little rub beforehand. I'm telling you, try it.
I'm cruel to my kale. I just stir it a little with a wooden spoon and then I eat it.
No, it's just massage it. It really it loosens up those fibers a little bit. Delicious. In case you didn't know, my first job was pastry chef apprentice. So the kitchen is someplace I really love to be.
I don't think I knew that. So you got that poet?
Yep. Playwright.
Playwright?
Teacher.
Renaissance person.
And commissioner.
And commissioner. Mom.
All right. Is everybody back now? Are we still, Corporation Counsel and Clerk, are you here?
I am here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure. All right. I will call this meeting to order. It's the November 17th, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting. Mr. Mulcahy, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Beeman.
Present, attending remotely from the Village of Manchester, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Hodge.
Present, attending remotely from Ypsilanti Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Present, attending remotely from the Township of Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Commissioner Labar.
Attending remotely from the City of Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Maciejewski.
President, attending remotely from Dexter Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Morgan.
Present, attending remotely from the City of Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Sanders.
Present, attending remotely from Pittsfield Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Scott.
Present, attending remotely from the City of Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, in the great state of Michigan.
Commissioner Schenk.
Present, attending remotely from Northfield Township, where we are experiencing a light drizzle.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we have Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the
of the
United
United
States of
States of
America
America,
and
and
to the
to the
republic
Republic
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for
for all.
all. Thank you. Next, we have resident participation. You have 3 minutes, and if you're on Zoom, please raise your hand. And then when you're called on, state your name and location. If you're using a phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself when you're called upon. And I'm just waiting from us to hear from a staff person whether we have any public participation.
Chair, it does look like we have Gail Summerhill who would like to address the board. I'm
How
just
do you
seeing her
see-
hand up by her name.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if
Usually
you
there's
click
a
on participants at the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to see all that.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Usually a staff person sends me a text and that didn't happen today. So that learned something new. Ms. Summerhill, please.
Good evening.
Good
Can you hear me? Yes, okay. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who came out on Saturday. That was, I'll call it a good experience for those of you who have not come into the community of Ypsilanti before. I look forward to each and every one of you coming on the eastern side of the county so that you may hear from the voices of the people on the eastern side, so that when you're making policy decisions, that you will hear directly from the people. I do understand that just having the knowledge to know who the county commissioners are and what they do, we at Ipsy Can I Share are doing the best job that we can by letting people know who their elected officials are and what they do. It's sad that elected officials do not give information on a broader scale as we do, but so that people may show up and understand, you know, what your positions are. So I just wanted to, you know, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to you listening to the needs of the people, and make sure that you bring tissue with you next time so that you will hear the pains that I hear on a regular. Lastly, I just wanted to make note that through the Lieutenant Governor, you know, they did a Thriving City tour. And I'm interested with this go round because they're going to be asking, of course, the grassroots and grass top people, you know, to hear from them. And what they put in their memo was they're looking for an open and honest conversation. So I look forward to being at the meeting, and I'd like to hear, you know, what they will take away with from the governor's office as we share what the needs of the people are, and especially during this pandemic. So thank you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Tricia Duckworth.
Oh, good evening, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I'm calling from Van Buren Township, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But I want to just talk to you briefly. I think sometimes when the people speak out, and we give our righteous indignation because of the things that we see happening in our community. Sometimes it is taken personal by you all, and I can understand why. But it is nothing personal. It is something that our community has been going through for a very long time. And it's something that, our community is owed so much. That's why I wish they would teach this critical race theory, right? So that everybody, I think they should teach it on jobs. I think they should teach it everywhere, right? Because I don't think people understand the severity of what has happened to the Black community, how wealth was built off our backs for many, many years. And we still to this day have that wealth gap. We still to this day experience literacy issues and all these different things. So when we come to you all, yes, we're coming saying, do this, please. But it's not because we're saying, oh, you're bad. And, no, we are crying out because when your boots on the ground and you hear the stories and you see the pain, and you live it too. Because why I can't say that I live in Washtenaw County when I lived there for 18 years, that's who I found myself. I found myself in Washtenaw County. I grew up in Washtenaw County. It's important to me, but I was forced out because I am disabled and my housing voucher would not fit anywhere. So it's this stuff is so deep and it's so systemic. And I don't think sometimes that you all look so much at that because you get offended by some of the things that were said. And I get it. You may feel it's harsh. And I've heard some of you say you want grace, but we need grace too. We need grace. Sometimes you have to give that thing that you want. Sometimes you have to, and it's better sometimes to give than to receive. You all are owed respect, but the community needs so much. And we need you to show up and listen and be attentive and really do, please, these grassroots organizations, they need this funding. Don't miss this opportunity for your disdain for me and some of my Facebook posts, because it's so much bigger than that. These communities need you all. They need this funding. And I just hope that you all will seriously take this into consideration and help these groups and remove the red tape, because with the red tape, they won't get the funding. They won't get the funding. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's everybody who wishes to speak tonight. Thank you for your comments. Commissioners, would you like to respond? Commissioner Scott and then Commissioner Jefferson.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to thank both of our participants for coming to speak to us tonight. And I am eager to attend future meetings on the East Side. I have shared with our board liaison and my colleagues, as I've shared here a number of times, I want to be at all of these things because I am a single mom and I have to work a full-time job, which is shift work as an ICU nurse. That often means to be at meetings like this, I have to schedule myself off during the week, and that means I end up working on the weekend. It is a frustration that knows no bounds with me that I can't be at everything because I want to be there to listen to people. But I know everybody can appreciate the constraints of a single mom needing to pay a mortgage and have to have a full-time job. And when you're a shift worker, you work from, for me, 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. So it means like on nights like tonight, I cannot leave work at 5 o'clock. My patient is still there and another nurse doesn't come in until 7, and then I have to give reports. So hopefully in the future, I will be able to attend some of these meetings. I just want to be sure that everybody understands that and does not construe my own personal absence as not caring about what's going on or not wanting to talk to people. I certainly do. And I'm glad that some of my colleagues were able to be there, and hopefully I'll be able to be there in the future. And I appreciate very much your understanding. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Jefferson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, that is something that I know our communication operations, Mr. Lindeman is working on, trying to schedule things through a doodle poll, and it's quite a few dates and times on there that may be out ahead of your scheduling yourself. I understand, Katie, that you could be there. If you could be there, you would. Appreciate it. But the other thing that was brought to mind, there's a situation that I haven't spoken of that happens in Eastern County a lot recently, and that is the vouchers that are given for Section 8 are no longer enough to cover the recipient's portion of rent. And Ms. Duckworth just mentioned that and brought that to mind. What happens is the rents are going so high now that even though they have the voucher, they can't do that other end because they don't make enough money. And then the other thing that happens with that is some will try to find an extra job to take care of that extra amount that they're not owed, and then they'll still be eligible for the voucher, but they'll be cut off food services. And so, it's difficult because their income is too high to get the food services. So we really need to look at some things to help the renters and those who are subsidized in housing over in Eastern County. That is why not only are they moving to Van Buren, they're moving to Wayne County and also Taylor and Inkster and Romulus. These are people who have lived here all their lives. So just wanted to put that in. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Any other commissioners? Looking for hands. Okay, again, thank you, Ms. Summerhill and Ms. Duckworth, for coming and making your comments. I appreciate it. And to my fellow commissioners who were not able to make Saturday's event, Commissioner Scott had to work and Commissioner Beaman was ill. I did take note. I haven't gotten them out to you yet, but I will try to get that done next day or so. All right, thank you. Moving on, liaison reports. Do any commissioners have liaison reports?
I've got one. I think you probably can't see the hand though.
Nope, I couldn't. Commissioner Hodge, you're on the top.
I'm learning.
You're
I
on the
gotcha.
top line. I can't see your hand. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I only got a few today, and they're pretty brief. So one of them is we had the first meeting of the year of the Joint Airport Zoning Board. All we did this time was elect officers for the board, and then we reviewed some of the zoning permits and then some changes to zoning maps, and that includes the one in Willow Run. Wasn't really any major changes, so all that was good. And then we've had several meetings of the Retirement Commission. Chair Shink and I are on that one. And at our most recent meeting, there was a special meeting to do some asset allocation rebalancing. And then the last thing I'll add is you all received an email from me, and some of you may have already RSVP'd, but I've taken over the Youth Commission from Commissioner Morgan. And I just want to remind people about the event that the Youth Commission is doing on January 30th. And that's a Sunday from 3 to 4. It's an opportunity for all of us to get together and then meet the youth commissioners that live in our district. So if you haven't already RSVP'd for that, please do it. You got an email from me about it back in October. I can bump it again if that's necessary. But that's all I have for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other commissioners with the liaison report?
Chair, I have my hand raised as well.
Okay, well, now you've moved to the top line. I know it might sound like I'm making it up, but it's true. So
Well,
I don't know why my
does-
iPad does that, but
It does move us to the top line when we raise our hands.
that's not
So
helpful.
by
Okay.
nature of raising our hands, we make it so that you can't see if we raised our hands. It's really not on you. It's just how Zoom works, apparently.
All right, go ahead, Commissioner Morgan.
One quick liaison report. There was a Board of Public Works meeting this morning, and one of the things we did is we decided to set up a work group to look at an ordinance related to commingling of recycling and trash. As Commissioner Maciejewski is well aware, and we've had some conversations about this. There is a concern about commingling of recycling and trash in some of the parts of the county outside of the city of Ann Arbor. And so there is discussion around looking at an ordinance to implement fines or fees or things related to the licensing of recycling haulers in the county if they are to just commingle recycling and trash. I think if any of us who recycles would like to know that our recycling is going to recycling and not just being thrown in the trash. So I've heard this is also a community in other or an issue in other communities and in other states through some conversations I've had with folks elsewhere. And so Theo is leading that process, but just giving you a heads up that at some point long into the future, this may come back to the board for consideration. If we were to do anything like this, it would be a proposed ordinance that would come back to this board. So we're starting to have conversation about what that would look like, but just want to share that as a heads up, or if you have any concerns or thoughts on that. It's very early in the beginning stages of looking at it. So nothing major happening anytime soon. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. As somebody who lives just outside the city limits and doesn't have our recycling or trash picked up for sometimes weeks at a time, and then all of a sudden it's magically both gone within an hour, I really would appreciate such an ordinance. So thank you. So if there are no other commissioners with liaison reports, then I will give you mine. For the Agricultural Lands Preservation Advisory Committee, there's a conservation easement. We call it Bassett and Duluth. That's the owner's names in Freedom Township that will be closing tomorrow. And then another farm, the Irwin Farm, did close a few months ago. And so those are exciting accomplishments. For the Road Commission, this week's meeting was all about the budget. And so some of the highlights are that the Road Commission will be getting some extra money from the state, but it's unlikely to be significant. There are labor market issues affecting the Road Commission. They're going to be adding a safety trainer to the HR department. So that's going to help people have a safer experience at the Road Commission. And then they're also working toward an apprentice program. They're making good progress on increasing the funding of their pension, healthcare, and OPEB. So they're over the 60% funding. That was an important milestone for them. And then every year they budget about $4 million for capital road equipment. And they've got a lot of primary road projects going. About $15.8 million will be going towards paved roads. This includes township contracts. Unpaved, about 846,000, bridges and culverts, 1.5 million, and traffic and safety, about $4.7 million. So that's my liaison report. All right, moving on then. We have no special order of business. We have no appointments. We have a consent agenda. Would someone be willing to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Does anybody wish to pull anything in the consent agenda for separate consideration? Okay, Mr. Mulcahy, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Beaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk.
Yes,
Agenda passed.
thank you. Would somebody be willing to move the resolutions, please? Commissioner Labar?
I'll start with resolutions. One, Ways and Means, the Emergency Manager Performance Grant. That's 1A. 1B, the resolution approving the Strategic Facilities Plan or Space Plan development. C, the resolution on FY22 drug court grant. 2, under Ways and Means, A is the resolution approving the 2021 apportionment report. 3, under Board of Commissioners, A, resolution on the 2022 calendar for the Board of Commissioners. B, resolution on the development of the COVID-19 vaccine requirement for county employees. C, which is the supplemental, the authorization of the administrator's signature on the tri-share letter, and then 4A, approval of claims.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Support.
Does anybody wish to pull any items for separate consideration? Commissioner Hodge?
Thank you, Chair. I want to pull the calendar for separate consideration.
Okay, the calendar is
It's 3A.
3A.
Yep.
Okay, I think I said Commissioner Beaman.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to pull 3B, the vaccine requirement.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Commissioner Labar has his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Labar?
Chair, just before we vote on it, I just wanted to give a special thank you to Greg and his team in terms of facilitating the tri-share letter. So no need to pull it, but didn't want to neglect their efforts.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mulcahy, will you call the roll, please, on all items except for item 3A and item 3B?
We have to have discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion? Okay, seeing no desire for discussion, Mr. Mulcahy, will you please call the roll on the items other than 3A and 3B?
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beaman.
Yes.
All items except 3A and 3B passed.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 3A, the calendar. We have discussion on that. Commissioner Hodge?
Yeah, so I have some discussion. So you got an email with an alternate option for the calendar, and I want to talk a little bit about that. And then eventually I will motion for that version of the calendar. So we've had some conversations about how it is confusing for the general public when they call into the meetings with Ways and Means and then BOC being right after it. Typically, people are calling in to give public comment about things that are on the Board of Commissioners agenda during Ways and Means. And then people watch the meeting and then they see the thing that they commented on didn't appear on the agenda. So it makes it a lot harder for people to engage in the work that we're doing, and it makes it very confusing. So some of you I know are very interested in decoupling those two meetings without trying to mess too much with what we're currently doing. So this alternative option here, what it does is it leaves Ways and Means on Wednesdays at 6:30, which was important because we wanted to leave the policymaking times, the policymaking meetings at the same time that people are used to, 6:30, and it's a time that we know that is approachable for people. And then we moved the Board of Commissioners meeting to Thursdays at 6:30. And then what we did with working session is move that to Thursdays at 4:30. So what this would allow us to do, one of the nice benefits of moving working session to 4:30 is that it allows staff or others who are going to be presenting to us to at least partially do some of their presentation during their workday. So they're not having to wait until further into the evening after having already worked the whole day. That would give us time to go through working session. Typically, working session, we have a defined period of time that we're doing it, and then working session will end, and then we will go into Board of Commissioners. The other benefit to, I think, this schedule is that right now, if people go onto the internet and take a look at when our meetings take place, you see that we have Ways and Means listed as it being at 6:30, and then Board of Commissioners at 6:45, which we know is never accurate. And that's confusing. We get public comment about people asking, why does it list this meeting as happening 15 minutes after this other one, when that's never the case? So that solves a couple of, I think, of issues that we run into. Makes it a bit easier on staff. It also, I think, will cut down on when we're making decisions, cut down on the times when we're making decisions really late at night, which we know is just not as good. We kicked around a bunch of different ideas on how to maybe shuffle things around and still be really efficient. One of the reasons why we settled on this one is that we wouldn't have same night approval for things when in those emergency situations when we do same night approval, but what we would do is have next day approval. So by having Ways and Means on that Wednesday and then BOC on Thursday. If we did have to do something really quickly, we would still be able to do that without calling a special meeting. So it seems like this, I feel just pretty strongly that this would be a good way for us to move forward and decoupling those two meetings. It'll make it easier for the public to engage in the content that's listed for that actual agenda. And it'll move, I think, working session to a time that's much more convenient for a lot of people.
Thank you, Commissioner Hodge. Other comments on this? Commissioner Machewski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to support what Commissioner Hodge has put forward and appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with him and presenting this alternative. I agree with everything that he has said, and I will go back to my experience before I was a commissioner in trying to watch the meetings and watch recordings of the meetings to get a handle on what was going on and to really understand things better, and found it to be incredibly difficult to follow what was going on and what was covered by votes. So I think this is a step forward that we can make here with this alternative schedule. And I think for me, it's really important for people to know what the main voting meeting is and to have their public comment occur at that main voting meeting. In addition to the opportunity to come to Ways and Means, but to know that if they want to see what we did on final passage of something at a Board of Commissioners meeting, they can go to that video and they can see it. And they can hopefully see the comments at that meeting and the discussion at that meeting, because right now, a lot of that happens at Ways and Means during public comment. So again, thank you to Commissioner Hodge for bringing forward the proposal, and I look forward to supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Machewski. Commissioner Morgan?
Thanks, Chair. First, I really appreciate thinking of a different way of doing our meetings. I think that I don't think our current system is perfect by any means, and there's got to be a better way to do it. I've been saying this for years as well. I do have concern that if you think of just tonight's agendas, we just approved all of those items without discussion at the board meeting because we'd already thoroughly discussed them in Ways and Means. But if I were somebody from the general public showing up tonight to this meeting here, and this meeting only took 20 minutes, I would be a little confused or baffled as to why there was no discussion of any of the items on the board agenda. So my worry is that if people are only paying attention to the Board of Commissioners meeting, I think they're going to feel like we are not having any legitimate discussion or debate at the board table. I think the way that we function now is, and I think Commissioner Machewski has said this before, is that we don't really use the Ways and Means Committee as a budget committee. We just use it as a first reading of the board agenda. And what a lot of entities do, and I think the city, some of the cities or townships do this, they just have a first reading and a second reading of most items if they're policy or budget related. So I guess I'm very open to change. I'm not sure that this model is exactly what I would want to support, quite frankly, because sometimes we have Ways and Means meetings that don't last 2 hours. And so I think we're going to result in having several hour evenings on Thursday nights just baked in. We're going to plan for several hour evenings on Thursday nights rather than right now. The way I budget is I say my Wednesday night every 2 weeks is gone. It's what it will. I'll be here till as long as I'm here, and I'm going to stick with it and be here all night if it takes it. And I will add that I think we are much shorter than most other units of government, certainly the school board or the city of Ann Arbor, that sometimes go until 1 or 2 in the morning. I think that would be atrocious. So those are my concerns. I think what I would suggest that we, I'm not sure, I'm going to think about this more. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable changing to this structure. If anything, I think we would want to actually just eliminate Ways and Means and have a first and second reading of the board and have so that everything goes through a first and second reading. It would have the exact same function as to what we do now in practice, but it would streamline things with having one roll call, one public comment, one session for everything on the agenda. That would be what I would do if I were going to make a change. I think this is a viable alternative that you've proposed, and I give you much credit for that. I just am not entirely sure if I think it's a better system than what we have currently quite yet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Labar.
Thanks, Chair. I'm sorry, folks. I am not seeing if it was submitted electronically, the substance of the amendment. I know Commissioner Hodge mentioned this at board leadership and it's been talking to folks, but I don't have the physical documentation. If that's something staff can let me know where that's available, that'd be great. I'd like to take a look at it and would propose we not make any final decision tonight in terms of long-lasting changes, but think about it in an additional 2 weeks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Labar. Commissioner Scott?
Thanks, Chair. I, appreciated the conversation I had with Commissioner Hodge on this and the thoughtful considerations he made of my suggestions in the way that it was initially thought out. I do think, in like hearing some of the counterpoints, I'll be interested to hear what other people have to say. And I don't want to make a motion to anything yet because I don't want to stifle anybody's voice. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk on this. I do think there is something to what Commissioner Morgan has said too about, Wednesday night we're here till we're here. And Thursday night, we understand that there's a kind of time limited meeting there that gives people balance in their lives as well, that I can appreciate the argument for that. I wouldn't necessarily get rid of Ways and Means Committee, but I appreciate what he's saying about that. Maybe I'm biased as former chair of the committee. I'm like, no, you can't get rid of it. But I'm interested to hear what some of my other colleagues say, but I think there's also wisdom in what Commissioner Labar says about considering more time to think about this, and I'll wait to propose a motion like that until we hear from everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Jefferson.
Thank you, Chair. Did I hear that there was a discussion from the public about being confused and that led to looking at changing our schedule? Is that what I heard from Commissioner Hodge? Just to answer that, then I'll move on to what I have to say.
Yeah, we've got it during public comment a few times about there being confusion around. Like if you look at the website and you're trying to plan when you come to the meetings, you go on there and it says Ways and Means starts at 6:30, and then it says Board of Commissioners starts at 6:45. So when people try to plan if they're going to come and give public comment, I've heard from several constituents where they think they're coming at 6:45 and then they've already missed public comment or it's too late for them. So it's that's one of the things that's come up as a potential change or a reason for change. The other piece is around trying to reduce some of that confusion by just not having Ways and Means and Board of Commissioners on the same night. I think that, one of the reasons why Ways and Means goes on so long and then Board of Commissioners is so short is that we've already been doing like a meeting for 2 or 3 hours. I think if they were separated, it wouldn't end up being 2 really long meetings, but I think it'd be 2 really engaged meetings in a different kind of way.
Thank you. I'm listening to that. I believe that that discussion should be carried on until another couple of weeks, as Commissioner Labar has requested. But I'm concerned about the 4:30 start. I don't know who's working now, but there may be future commissioners working. And 4:30 may just be too early. So I think we need more discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Are there other comments from commissioners? Okay, I guess I'll say my comment then, which is that
Commissioner Maciejewski had a hand.
I apologize. It's hard to see. I will be glad when we go back to in person. Commissioner Maciejewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to kind of respond, I think this is a the easiest step forward. And in essence, what it achieves is the decoupling of Ways and Means and Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Morgan is correct that I have been quite critical of what gets on Ways and Means. Because in my estimation, in my definition of Ways and Means is that it's revenue and budgets. And it is seemingly, as Commissioner Morgan had pointed out, more of a committee of the whole than anything. And if it's committee of the whole, then we should just call it committee of the whole and maybe go to that kind of structure. But I think what Commissioner Hodge has presented this evening for our discussion and consideration is really a first step towards what I hope is a bigger step potentially in the next term for those commissioners that are serving, to do something more like a committee of the whole, or change the way Ways and Means operates, or do a first reading, second reading, some different structure. But I think decoupling the two meetings and ending that confusion for people who are tuning in at 6:45 thinking they're going to see the regular meeting and they're in the middle of Ways and Means, which tonight went to 8:45. So I think is a first step. I support this move tonight, but would very much like to see something more significant occur in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thanks. I just want to also I'm like reiterating a point here that Commissioner Jefferson made, to think about a 4:30 start. If we have people who work 9 to 5 jobs that are not flexible with their time, a 4:30 start will eliminate anybody who thinks that they want to run for this office. I want to try to figure out a way we can schedule things to make it easier for people and working people. Particularly, it is obviously something I feel passionate about. And I don't want to do anything to try to make this job a harder position for anybody to think about doing. So maybe something else for us to think about in terms of that. Let's not cut out the working person from thinking about being able to be a part of this committee or this commission. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Hodge.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to add a few other points. So I really saw this as a way to start a conversation about trying to maybe do things a little bit differently and maybe a little bit more efficiently in addressing some of the concerns that we've heard. The 4:30 start for working session, that was a suggestion that came out of my conversation with Commissioner Scott. That seemed like that was a good move based on the conversation that I had there. If we feel like it needs to be later, we could do 5 o'clock. We could do a little bit later. I mean, I think what we were trying to do here was keep the policy making meetings at 6:30. So we could do working session a little bit later and still try to make that work.
Thank you. I'm going to call on Commissioner Beaman real quick because she hasn't spoken on this issue yet. And then Commissioner Scott, and then Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I agree that the 4:30 is hard. I'm one that does have a traditional 9 to 5 job. My employer is amazing. So I do have a little bit of flexibility, but the 4:30 could be difficult for me, and I would feel a disservice to those that I serve if I couldn't be in attendance at those meetings. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Beaman. Commissioner Scott?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just clear, Commissioner Hodge, I think the time you proposed to me was 4. And so I think we moved it back to 4:30. So I think if we can be flexible on this and thinking about it, that's a good thing. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yeah, I still think, I know this sounds wild, but the idea, and I don't want to propose a counter proposal by any means, but I still think the easiest way to achieve what we're trying to achieve and to streamline things and make it simpler for everyone would be essentially to just basically merge Ways and Means into the board meeting through a first and second reading. You have public comment right at the beginning, so it's clear for everyone. You have a set start time. You have one roll call. You could still do the functions of Ways and Means in the exact same way as we're doing them now, And then you could make working session a bit more substantive and have, for 4-year budget years, for example, you could just have most of that year Ways and Means or working session meetings be focused on the budget and use that as truly a working session to work on the budget, or whatever other items we want to work on at working session. I know those always bring really valuable conversations to the board. But 3 out of every 4 years, we don't actually have a real budget process that is inclusive of hearings or lots of discussion or anything like that. So you could essentially see the working session chair as the sort of facilitating that budget process during the 4-year budget cycle, and kind of beef up that position a bit more. And then you could just add a vice chair to the working session committee, which we don't have currently. So you'd still have 4 people in leadership. An idea to consider, a much less radical idea, would be to keep our current structure, although not in any way perfect, but functional for the most part, and just move it up to 5:30 or move it up to 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., just moving it up earlier in the night so that we started before 6:30. I'll be honest, I don't know if I'd still feel that way when we go back to in-person meetings early next year. The reason that earlier than 6:30 works great right now is because we're all calling in from home, and so there's no commuting time involved. But maybe that's a way to at least give us more time in the evening on Wednesday nights under the current structure, if we were to just move up our meeting by even half an hour to 6 p.m. Just some thoughts. I'm very open to thinking about this further over the next couple of weeks. And I do want to clarify, I'm really happy that we are having this conversation, because I'm just happy we're having it. I think it's a good conversation to have.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Morgan. You covered what I was thinking about. But yeah, I hear the cry from the community, and I believe that there needs to be a change. But if we're making a decision to have a 4:30 meeting based upon us being able to get out at a decent time and make decisions at a decent time of the day or night, if we're making that decision to have a board of commissioners meeting following that to start at 6:30, then I don't think that's a decision that's being made considering what the community is asking for us. That's basically to accommodate us, because I was thinking about the drive once we get to out of these meetings on Zoom. That commute is rush hour time, so a lot of times it takes a lot of more than 20 minutes to get there. And it's, if you're getting off at 5:30, a 6 o'clock start is still kind of rough. So the meetings were always, we have Parks and Rec who meets at 2 o'clock on Tuesdays, and that was done in 2017. It was a vote that the board decided to do that because they were making decisions maybe at 11 o'clock at night. And so that took away the opportunity for audience participation. The people are at work. And we're not trying to accommodate ourselves. We're trying to accommodate the community who pay taxes so that we could be here and they can hear what our discussions are about. So I agree with some of the things that Commissioner Jason Morgan has just talked about, but needs more discussion before I vote on this and say yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Scott.
Thanks, Chair. I also appreciate the ability to think about this. Clearly, it has raised a lot of good points. I think hearing the discussion at the board table has allowed us to think about other ideas and other things that we might do. I am very interested. It is one of my primary things that I'm interested in serving people in good governance and transparency. And the more we can do that and try to think about fostering other people to come into government positions, I'm happy to do that. This is a fantastic first start. So Commissioner Hodge, do not feel discouraged at the discussion or maybe the unwillingness here. I think that this is a good thing that we're doing, but at this point, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn this discussion to a time certain.
Support.
Okay, Michelle, can you give us a little guidance on next steps on adjourning to a time certain? Do we then move directly to the vote, or do we have discussion on that motion?
There's no discussion. You simply vote on whether to adjourn it to a time certain.
Okay, Mr. Mulcahy.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Quick point of information, adjourning to a time certain, do we have to state when that time is?
Right.
Yes.
I don't think you do, but I can make the time certain. I'll adjourn it to the next Ways and Means meeting on December 1st, I think, or 2nd, or whatever day it is, the next meeting. Okay, thanks.
What about the next Board of Commissioners meeting?
Yes.
The next Board of Commissioners meeting, that's what I meant.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure we weren't delaying it longer. Okay, cool.
Well,
Then
but I have a point of clarification to ask then too, because so then we needed to vote on or the plan was for us to vote on the calendar today. This is why we're having this discussion now. So are we trying to move the discussion of this alternative calendar to a later date, and then you want to vote on the original calendar today? Is that what's happening?
We can adjourn it all until the next Board of Commissioners meeting, if that is amenable. We are in the middle of the vote. I mean, I guess that's point of clarification is fair, but
Michelle,
It sounds like we're adjourning the entire discussion on the calendar to the following meeting, which
that is the intent of my motion.
Which is not detrimental to anything.
No.
got it. Okay, I'll vote yes then.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge.
Yes.
Item adjourned to the December 1st Board of Commissioners meeting.
Thank you. The next item up for discussion is item 3B, a resolution directing the county administrator to develop a COVID-19 vaccine requirement for county employees. Commissioner Beeman?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate this resolution, and I also want to start out with that I love vaccinations. I love science. My firstborn received the first COVID vaccine, and I'm so excited about that. However, before we put forward any type of mandate on our employees, I want to make sure that our employees are being supported in every way possible to get this vaccination. So the way that my brain works is I look for the person with the most in the way of getting this vaccination, who has the most boundaries, just stumbling blocks to get a vaccination. So I look at someone who is one of our lowest paid employees, who is a single parent, who may have very limited access to transportation, whether that's public or their own transportation. All of these different factors, including time off. And that's a really big one for me. Time off to get the vaccine and time off to care for themselves after they've had the vaccine. As we all know, some people have adverse side effects or even just simple side effects like fever and all of those different things. If you are a single parent, you have children to care for, and you may fear those side effects and taking time away from your role, and what that could even mean to your employment. Not that we're that type of an employer, but I know people that are in those positions and in those roles. Again, any type of caregiver, whether it's a single parent, someone caring for someone who's elderly or has a disability, all of those different things. So before we put something forward that makes a requirement on our employees, I want to make sure that all of the barriers are out of the way so that they can receive the vaccination. We have such a high rate. I was so excited to see that email from Administrator Dill that 90% have received the vaccine. That's amazing. And so for that last 10%, I really want to understand what is stopping them from getting the vaccine before we make the assumption that it is choice.
Thank you, Commissioner Beaman. Commissioner Scott?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Beaman. I think those are really great points. And so just to clarify that this resolution is asking our administrator to come up with a policy for that. And I think those are like important points that I would imagine everybody on the Board of Commissioners would support, like thinking about that as a policy, how we're able to make sure that if people are having an adverse reaction, that they're not penalized in their workday for doing something we've required them to do. So really great points. And I guess I just want to highlight that to Administrator Dill for when we think about framing that policy, that we think about exactly the points that Commissioner Beaman brought up. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Any other commissioner comments? This week, Commissioner Dill sent out an email to all of us outlining that he would like to develop a policy not of vaccination, not of mandating vaccinations, but of testing. Commissioner Dill, could you speak to that just a little bit, please?
Sure, I thank you, Chair, for the promotion to Commissioner. I don't know what.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my God.
But thank you for that. To Commissioners,
I always
first,
laugh when other people do it. So sorry.
First to Commissioner Beaman, thank you for your time today, a very thoughtful discussion. Many of the items that we talked about today are already in the queue. For example, we're looking at opportunities to make certain that we remove all the barriers, make certain that things like release time and access, all of those things are carefully thought out, continuing to have conversations, discussions with our labor partners related to this. All of those things are in the queue and will have to be, as Commissioner Scott just mentioned, components of a process that we push forward. So we don't have all those components worked out yet. The communication that was sent out talked about mandated testing. We want to align with the information that we're receiving from our state and federal partners, certainly, and we're continuing to look at that, evaluate that, and also evaluate best practices from our sister counties throughout the state of Michigan and the country. So all of that to say, we still have work to do before a policy is before you, but all those things are part of the process for consideration.
Thank you, Administrator Dill. Commissioner Sanders, I think I saw your hand up. Nope. Okay. Any other discussion?
Chair, this is Jason. I just raised my hand.
Okay. Commissioner
I didn't
Morgan.
want to start speaking without you actually calling on me. I think our intention, this is what happens when it gets so late at night here. I think our intention is through the resolution is to have administration come back with a requirement policy, but I would certainly want to see it reflect what Commissioner Beaman mentioned regarding making sure we're doing everything we absolutely can and need to make sure that we're accommodating employees to get the vaccine. I do know it. Sometimes for some folks, the side effects of the vaccine are just being, pretty tired and fatigued for a day or two. So I do think it's important to make sure that we are being accommodating in that respect. But I think we'd like to see a requirement policy come back to us with all applicable things considered from county admin's perspective.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to look one more time to see if anyone's hands are up. I don't see anybody.
Administrator Dill has his hand up.
I apologize. I left this out. I had exchanged emails with Commissioner Machieski today related to the road commission. I want to make clear that they are not included in our survey results. And to this point, we haven't had discussion with the road commission board and managing director about the impacts of a mandate from the county. Those are also considerations for us as we move forward, and I want to make sure that you all were aware of those things.
And if I can, I don't have to raise my hand for myself, but if Administrator Dill, if the road commission then are they affirmatively covered by any mandate that we would have?
I don't know the answer to that question. That is still something I'll need to work through with the Corp Counsel and our other partners. So I will provide you with an update on that. I think it's also important to note, since I have the floor, that we continue to be in daily contact with our health officer and our medical director, because they obviously help to inform this work and have been strong advocates of this organization and its staff. And I think by and large, that's one of the reasons why we have such a high vaccination rate. So I wanted to make sure that they receive the appropriate amount of credit as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Hodge?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out that the resolution says that, administration would work to develop a policy to propose to us by the December 1 Ways and Means. So if people are thinking about maybe we need more time beyond that, that might be one of the be it further resolved that could be amended, or even if that were presented to us at Ways and Means, we could table it or move it to a time certain if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan?
Yeah, I think so. It's Commissioner Scott and I's understanding that admin's been looking at a policy for a long time. And so and we are also going to have to implement a policy per President Biden's directive by, I believe, early in the new year, January 4th, if it holds, I believe, somewhere around then. So I think the options we have are to have a vaccine requirement policy or a requirement and test option to opt out of a requirement. And so the time is of the essence. We will have to develop a policy before the end of the year anyway. And so we'd like that policy to come to the board so that we could be comfortable with whatever policy we do implement. So it does seem like a tight timeline, but, and Greg can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we have to come up with something by the end of the year anyway.
Yeah, we will have something in you for your consideration in December. I leave it to the board to determine whether it's completely vetted and you're comfortable with supporting it at that time. But we will have something for you in December at the December 1 meeting.
Commissioner Scott?
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Morgan, that's right. Our last meeting before it's January 4th. Is the date, is December 1st. And I think that's why we thought it was expedient, and we know that work is already being done. And so that is definitely a mandate that's been put out for people who receive with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that COVID-19 vaccines are required for that. And I think our thinking was that's protective for the people that they're serving in those situations, which is why that CMS requirement is there. And if you just take by extension what we do at the county, it's really protective, not only for our county employees, but for the people who are coming in to receive county services, that they know they're protected that way too. That is why we picked the December 1st, though, because of that deadline, January 4th, and we won't have a meeting before then. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no other commissioners, I'll make a comment. I would like to note that it's my understanding from reading the news today that Michigan is one of the states with the highest COVID rates, and that many of our hospitals, not necessarily in Washtenaw County, but in the state, are at capacity, which causes a health risk to people who have conditions other than COVID. And I would also like to note that COVID remains a deadly disease for those who are unvaccinated. And it is also a serious disease for those who are vaccinated. I know people, including my own children, adult children who had COVID and missed over a week of work because of it, and have had, one of them's really had at least a month-long recovery where she just doesn't feel well. It is a serious, serious disease. And so I share the concern about, I share the concern about our employees. I also share a concern about people accessing county services. And I realize there may not be all employees who have direct contact with the public, but I do have a very serious concern about people who come to the county for help, for services, and then may end up catching COVID, and people who are vaccinated can have it too. So I'm not saying it's all just unvaccinated people. Just vaccinating is a protective measure that we can take. The vaccine is considered to be safe. And so I do support this resolution, even though I realize it's kind of uncomfortable. So with that, I think if there aren't other comments, I will ask Mr. Mulcahy to call the roll.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
No.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes.
Item passed.
Thank you. Next item is report from the county administrator.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening again, Commissioners. On the heels of this conversation, almost interesting that we're having this next item, but I want to make you all aware that we have developed a framework for a series of holiday pop-ups, really a way for us to celebrate the holiday and do it in a socially distanced manner, a healthy manner. We have a schedule that I'll communicate to the board probably sometime tomorrow, beginning Monday, December 13th at Zeeb Road and concluding Thursday, December 16th at the admin building. These have all been vetted by our health officer, and we'll do everything in our power to make sure that we're socially distanced, that we're doing things the right way, but it is also an opportunity for us to enjoy the holiday season and do it in a manner that is consistent with what we've done in the past in the county. So I'll get it out to you. If you have specific concerns about anything related to this, please reach out to me. But I'll make sure that you have the schedule sometime before the close of business tomorrow.
Thank you, Administrator Dill. I look forward to those holiday pop-ups. So thank you for putting the effort in to make that happen. All right, report of the Chair of the Board of Commissioners. I don't have another report. Do we have items for current or future discussion? Commissioner Jefferson?
Yes. For Administrator Dill, I just wondered if the Community Priority Fund document would be prepared and ready for us this week, by Friday.
You're muted.
I'm sorry, we're working to that date, Commissioner. I will have an update for you all early next week. That is the timeline that we're working on. We're working on moving this through board leadership on Monday and out to you all towards the beginning of next week.
All right. And then there was a appointment of myself to the Substance Use Disorder Oversight Policy Board on November the 3rd. The document of the that was voted on, the term says it ends in 22, but in actuality, that term ends in 24 because there are 3-year appointments. So I just want to make sure you get that clear and make sure we can find a way to remedy the resolution and correct it. Thanks.
Thank you. We may need to work with the clerk on that and come back and revisit that. So we'll see if we can do it without that, but if not, we'll bring it back. Any other items for current or future discussion? Commissioner Labar?
Yes, sure. Just with the conversation we've had about timing and days in which we meet, the vaccination policy, I don't think we've considered as a board any response other than acquiescence to what the state legislature has mandated in terms of meeting in person. And I don't, despite its content, I think it's foolish to cross the Michigan legislature if you don't have to. But I do want us to at least think about the idea of what our meetings look like in a physical sense, which I know staff have done, but also just our own comfort level with going back to those in-person meetings. I can't imagine we're the only body that is grappling with that. And, we're gonna have, per I believe the legislation itself, the ability to allow public participation remotely. I'm frustrated. I don't want to waste anybody's time on this, but at the same time, I was at an in-person event for work today, masked, except for that time when I was speaking. I know all of you have had to do that. That's very different, though, than do we want to be in a room for 3 or 4 hours together, speaking and breathing and so forth. And what, if any, option do we have? I don't know. But I just wanted to raise that. And if anybody wants to talk offline, happy to. Michelle, if you think we're out of any legal maneuverability there, happy to hear that. I just want to know anything we can do or can't as we head back towards in person. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBlanc. I know some of our legislators had said on a call with Congresswoman Dingle that they would see what they can do, but I haven't heard that they have been able to do anything. And so I've been operating under, believing that we will be forced to go back in person, which I will enjoy in some ways, but also understand that for some it'll be very uncomfortable. And then also, if we were to have a very crowded room, I think that that would be a bit of a sanitation concern. So I'm also interested in what are our options. Commissioner Machewski?
I would just add that I've been contacted by 3 of the 7 municipalities that I represent, asking or expressing interest in any way that they could continue to meet remotely. And I have been, had conversations with members of the Commission on Aging and the Broadband Task Force who have expressed interest in their ability to continue to meet remotely as well, which I did, forward a communication on to the administrator this afternoon about that, just seeking some clarification on the issue. So, and there was definite interest amongst other elected bodies and appointed bodies of some type of remote ability continuing, if at all possible. So I just wanted to add that into the discussion as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Thank you, Chair. Just for the other side of the argument, City of Ypsilanti and Ypsilanti Township have been meeting in person for some time. So as our state legislators, I believe that gives us an indication that it can be done. I'm not sure about the state, whether anyone got sick there, but I know no one has it. The 2 municipalities that I named. So there is a way to do it safely. And I think that what has happened with the numbers being high in the state and some numbers here too, but the opportunity to go back to in-person meetings is a very I guess risk prone attempt to to do our duties, but at some point, whether COVID leaves the people that we are knowing that are dying have already gone, but whether COVID begins to be managed better, we don't know. At some point, we're going to have to make those decisions, because I tell you what, if you know about the risk that we have in our communities here on the Eastern County. I still don't know. And you know, some of the numbers that we have, the 90% of vaccination, you know, it was because the community cried out and asked for it. It's not just one reason that the health department, that is just one reason that they've got that point. But we are definitely in a position to where we have already set up in our room some barriers, and there is also the opportunity to social distance. And like I said, I know that there may be others that don't want to meet, but there are some that are already meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. I do know that at the state, a lot of legislators have come down with COVID, unfortunately. Commissioner Scott?
Thanks, Chair. I think we'll probably just have to keep remaining a little bit nimble in what our expectations are. We do have the highest number of COVID cases in the United States right now in Michigan, unfortunately, leading the way. And I think that there's a lot of concern about what we're going to see in the winter as people go back indoors. And to your point, Chair, there are quite a few legislators who have COVID at this point. I don't know if it would be helpful for us to write any kind of letter asking about being remote. As you know, I see COVID almost every day I go to work. I am not thrilled about being at in-person events or in-person meetings. People are not always clear about the proper way to wear masks or wear masks. And it will be difficult for us to not allow people to speak to us in a meeting who don't want to wear a mask. So they can very much come into our open meetings. And the idea that people may come just as a protest and not wear masks really disturbs me. There have been about 115,000 healthcare workers who've died from COVID so far, and that's because of our exposure. And if we can think about what we can do to limit that here for us more, I would really rather see what we could do, as Commissioner LaBarre said. As much as I want to be back in a room with you all and there's synergy that happens in the room together, I really don't want to have to expose any of us any more than we already are to COVID, because as you said, Chair, it still is a very deadly disease, and a vaccine is not a magic bullet. Certainly will help you keep out of the hospital, but you can still get sick and you can still have long COVID symptoms from that. So let's just keep our options open and not just think we're doing this de facto, and try to think about other ideas that are out there, with the realization that numbers may go so high it might be a moot point anyway. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Anyone else? Okay, looks like that conversation has ended. Then the next item is to adjourn to next session. Looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Support.
All right, is everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Peace unto you.
Bye, everyone.
I hope everybody has a good night. Stay healthy.
Yeah.
See you soon.
See you tomorrow.
Oh yeah, right. See you tomorrow.